All right, I want to make sure that this is going to work really well. So let's see. Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to be looking over here. Hey, Mika. I just wanted to come on here and talk to you guys for a little bit because of a couple of comments that somebody left me. Hi, Kylo. I'm sorry I'm not looking at you guys because I'm looking at the chat. But yeah, so because of a couple of comments that a few people left me. Hi, West Haven. And I just wanted to have a conversation where we differentiate between the things that people say on YouTube and like what is realistic in the real world, right? And I wanted to clear up kind of where I stand on some things and what I am and what I am not promoting, okay? Hi, that dude. Oh, thank you so much, West Haven. I really appreciate that. Hey, Dark Prophet. So, all right. Hey, Ms. Buckner. I'm still terrified to say your first name because I do not want to ruin your name. That's why I always call you Ms. Buckner. I will not ruin your name. My goodness, rated. Hey, Jermaine. What? You know what? I'll make you a mod just so that I can see you when you come in. Anyway, so I want to talk to you guys, and I really want to have a conversation that separates what normally goes on YouTube, which is people have these sort of ostentatious, really unrealistic things that they say that are not applicable to the real world, and what I'm doing on my channel. All right, so let's be clear. Somebody left a comment on my video. Wow, am I freezing? Because that's annoying. Hold on. It seems I am freezing. Okay, sorry. I think I was freezing. And I froze in the ugliest face. Why? Anyway, so I want to talk about what I am and am not promoting on this channel. So first and foremost, to the individual who claimed that I was a separatist. I'm not a separatist. I actually have videos on this. I feel like people come to my channel and they watch a video, and maybe I need to do better at being very clear about my points in every video. But something I'm not promoting here is hate of white people. I'm not promoting separatism. I'm not promoting any of those things. First and foremost, I'm not a separatist because I think separatism is impossible. Realistically speaking, I think we've passed separatism at this point. There may be some remote places where we could get away from other groups of people. But the reality is, even if all of us at the peon level try to be separatists, we can't survive on this earth without global trade. And so there's going to be integration at some level. So I think when people have separatist conversations, like we're really all just going to live with each other and never interact with anybody else on the planet, that's really stupid, because clearly that's not going to happen. Clearly we're going to have to interact with other people at some point. So I'm not in any way, shape, or form promoting something that is completely and totally unrealistic to the society we live in today. Hey, Marcus X. Okay, yeah, listen, Kylo. Yeah, I just don't think it's realistic. Even in the days of so-called segregation, Black people and white people were heavily integrated. Let's just be real. During segregation, Black people and white people interacted all the time. They worked together, or in those days, Black people worked for white people. They serviced each other. Like, it's not like we weren't around each other. So we're not going to get around seeing and interacting with other groups of people. I think to believe that we can is very ignorant. However, as I explained in my video about Black people moving out of predominantly white areas, I still would not advise a Black person to live in an area where they may go days or weeks without seeing another Black person. That's simply not healthy. It's not healthy for the mental state of that person. It's not healthy for their children. It's not a place that they belong. It's not a place where they can reach their full potential or be fully nourished as a human being. It's a place where they're going to get a lot of complexes because they are the only one of their kind. And for all of the post-racial crap that people are talking about, we're not post-racial. We're just not. Okay. I feel like people tend to jump to these wild polar opposites on the spectrum. And they're either, for example, if you're a conservative, you can never disagree with any conservative talking points. If you're a liberal, you have to be the farthest, and I mean like Democrat kind of liberal. You have to be so far over, to the left that you're non-functioning. I'm more of a middle road person, okay? I believe in being logical. So, for example, whilst I will not sit here and say that I hate white people or white people aren't human or anything like that, what I will say is I will be honest in addressing the very real issues that we have in our society due to the fact that their culture is a very unhealthy culture. And that a lot of that baggage from Europe is brought into the places that they colonize and is very pollutive. So, for example, we think about chattel slavery like, oh, it's so egregious. And we think that white people did that to Black people because we're Black. No, white people just like slaves. White people used to sell their own women. They used to enslave each other. That's just how they move. We're just the target population now. So when I make my videos, what I am attacking isn't coming from a place of hate, but I'm attacking a culture. And the fact that the culture is very common for a certain group of people can make them feel under attack, but I can't help that. Like maybe you're not in touch with your actual history. Maybe you don't understand what your people are really like. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if all the Black people disappeared today, white people would literally destroy each other because that's what they did before they had non-whites to treat worse than they treat their own kind. So, what I wouldn't necessarily promote, what I wouldn't necessarily be for is I wouldn't necessarily be for talking points that cannot carry off into the real world, I don't like stupid talking points. I don't like things that are great for bringing in a crowd on YouTube, but are not realistic to anything that can translate into the real world that we need to work on. So, for example, I'll say something like, I would not promote interracial dating, not because I think white people are, animals, but because I think that Black people have a lot of healing to do before we can interact in this global society. Because this is what I recognize, people. Hi, John. What I recognize is that our society is global and people compete with like, right? So people group into their individual groups and are now competing on a global level. So the Chinese are gathering as Chinese people and they are competing as a group. The Europeans are gathering as European people, like they all have their individual interests, but they are European at the end, right? And they are competing as a group. They are protective of each other as a group. And Black people, what we are not doing is we are not gathering as a group and competing globally as a group. So what I recognize is that all of this kind of new age, kind of hippie, kind of, progressive thinking that people have with regard to our community is very dysfunctional, right? We have to learn how to operate as a unit to compete globally. And because I believe that Black people must compete globally, I can't believe in separatism, because in order to be in competition with somebody, there has to be some interaction, right? Even if all we want to do is sell our goods to other people, there's going to be interaction on some level. And so it's not going to be very helpful for us to just outright hate everybody, right? But what we definitely need to do is we need to be honest about the dangers and the behaviors of other groups of people. And so that is really what I get to on this channel. So I'm not here to be salacious. I'm not here to say a bunch of things that are very provocative, but are detached from reality. You know, the reality when you go to the store and there are various groups of people there, or when you get on a plane and there are various groups of people there, or when you go to work and there are various groups of people there, or when you go to your family reunion and there are different kinds of people there. You know, I'm not promoting any dogmas that will have you not talking to your own grandchildren or your own sister, you know? And the things that I do go hardline for, hi CRU. John asked, but do you believe some Black people might have success marrying whites? I mean, anything's possible, right? But let's be clear, John. Most Black people who marry white people do so because they have a problem with Black people, right? Because that's what I hear promoted. What I hear promoted is not, oh man, this was an amazing person. What I hear promoted is, I'm so sick of Black people. You know, I don't want a child that's too dark. I don't think you can have a successful marriage in that. This is what I think. I think two healthy, mature people can have a successful marriage. Just period. I think two healthy, mature people who are equally yoked can have a successful marriage. But I also think that a person riddled with dysfunction, and Cynthia brought this up earlier in her live, and I think as Black people who are descendants of slavery of any kind throughout the diaspora, we really have to think about this. I was doing some research, and I want to talk to Sin about it before I speak too much on it on YouTube, but I was doing some research about the breeding practices here in the United States of slaves. And it turns out that slave breeders, they did not expose a lot of their breeding practices, because even though slavery was legal, the reality of the behavior of the breeding was very controversial, even in slavery times. But Sin had mentioned earlier on her program that they likely bred for temperament in Black slaves in the same way that they bred bodies, you know, bred for strong slaves for certain tasks. In the same way, let's say that lighter weight people are preferred for, lighter weight people were preferred for, let's say, horse racing or something like that. So there is some evidence, historical evidence, that white people did breed a certain temperament into Black people. They also bred certain body types, right? Some body types were preferred for some jobs. And in the same way, you might breed a dog to be ideal for sheep herding, or the same way you might breed a dog to be ideal for being kept in the house or living in a cold climate. There is historical evidence, and I plan to do a whole separate live on this, that Black people were bred in much the same way. They were bred for particular body types, depending on what they were needed for, and they were bred for temperament. And depending on what you were looking for, you would pay a premium to mate your female slave with a male slave that was going to produce the sort of offspring you were looking for the jobs you needed your slaves to do. Even Black women were often bred to be concubines. So if there was a preferred look or skin color, you would have Black women bred to produce children that would then be sold into sexual slavery. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up to say that it's sort of like making a designer baby, right? And then those designer humans go on to mate with each other and breed more children. And those children still carry on. And I'm not talking about genetic memory per se. What I'm talking about is like you have two tall parents, so then they have tall children. IQ is something that is also very genetic. So you have two intelligent people are more likely to produce an intelligent child. Well, think if being docile, right? Or accommodating or malleable was desired. Could you breed in personality traits? We know you can do that with animals. Can you do that with people, right? And also how much of that is genetic and how much of it is environmental, right? Most things are a combination of both. So what I am saying, oh, hi, Sin. Hey, Sin. What I'm saying is this. Hi, Gab. I'm saying that to go back to what John asked me, John, do I think some Blacks could have success marrying whites? I think as Black people to compete globally, we have to overcome something that a lot of people don't have to overcome, which is that there may be some baggage from slavery, both environmental, meaning habits that we have passed on generationally, and also genetic, very likely. And again, I'm going to do a whole live on this because when Sin brought it up, I literally started looking up slave breeding practices. And I found some interesting information in actual historical documents. I think we need to deal with all of that first before, as a whole, in mass, that would even be a conversation that we can have, right? But when I had people coming to my comment section and sort of putting on to me things I don't believe, I really thought it was important to come on here and separate my talking points from like YouTube conversation. And so let's be clear. I am not a separatist because I don't think it's realistically executable in a global society. I recognize that even if I told all of the people beneath me, right, that they should be separatist, in order for us to have an economy, even an isolated economy, on some level, we would have to do trade and business, have meetings with and interact with other groups of people. So separatism completely is not realistic. It's just not. If you wanted to build a computer, you would have to source the materials from somewhere. You're going to have a meeting and talk to somebody at some point. You're not going to necessarily be able to completely. This thing keeps loading, I think so. Or maybe it's just my phone. I hope not. Anyway, what you're not going to be able, I'm looking at my phone. Well, I'm on my computer, y'all, but I'm looking at my phone to read the chat and I notice that it's loading. So let me know if it's loading for you guys too, because on my phone, it looks like it's loading, but I can't like legit tell. It could just be my phone reception is trash. Anyway, so there is a difference between a fantasy and things that are actually going to progress our people. So something that will progress our people is learning to overcome the bias that we have toward each other, building industry, learning how other groups of people behave based on their culture, and knowing how to navigate that, and having some sort of unity. A lot of the videos I make are not to do anything other than to open up a dialogue and share information about why things are the way they are. It's like when I was on Nyla's stream the other day, George Macon and I, and I've seen George talk to like Irritated Genie and other people about this subject. We had a disagreement on what should be done, let's say, with homosexuals or child molesters. And I said that they have to be dispensed with across the board without mercy. And he said, well, you know, maybe not, like we have to, you know, do something else. And my thing was, I was looking at how our current attitude toward those behaviors really sort of bleeds into a Eurocentric ideology, right? And that we cannot be pro-Black, right? And then embrace one of the most base and disgusting Eurocentric ideologies. Okay, so Crix said, you don't have to post me a video on white slavery, because if you were here at the beginning of this live, I said that Black people often think that white people enslaved them because we're Black. But I also said that if we look at European history, white people enslaved their women and they enslaved each other. That treating other people like they're not human is a characteristic of European culture. So I don't need to see a video on white slavery. I'm not ignorant on this. I understand that white people behave the way that they do on the whole. I'm not saying every white person, but on the whole, because it is part of their culture and has been part of their culture for thousands of years. And so a lot of the behavior that we see, they need to unlearn because they've passed on generationally, like this devaluing of women. They've passed that on generationally. The enslavement and dehumanization of people, whites have passed that on generationally. So Crix, I don't need the link. I understand that there has been white slavery. I made that point earlier in this video, that that's just how the European has moved historically. You had husbands selling their own wives. You know what I mean? They were property. You had the whole peonage system. You had the hacienda system. White people are very fond of mistreating large groups of people, even their own people. If there were no Black people around, white people would be mean to each other. I understand that. But what is unique about chattel slavery is the intentional breeding of human beings as you would a dog, right? That is what made chattel slavery different. What's different about chattel slavery is that Black people were not actually considered human. They were considered subhuman. What's different about chattel slavery is that the Darwinism and Darwinic approach that predates Darwin was merged with the behavior Europeans were already engaged in and used to justify behavior globally of dehumanization toward non-whites, specifically Black people, because we were so phenotypically different. So I don't need a video on white slavery. I understand white history. I understand white history. And that's why I don't hate them. Do you know what I mean? I know that this is not about Black people. I know that the way that the European moves and his generations move, it's not about them. When I see them engaging in certain behaviors, I know that this reaches back historically in their people's history, thousands of years. But on my channel, what I try to do is remind people about that, right? Is when I have a conversation. So when I say, for example, Black people should not live in predominantly white areas, not neighborhoods, but let's say a whole state, you know, or where you're going to go days and days and days without seeing another Black person. I say that because I recognize it's not a safe space, right? It's not a safe space. I know all of the left people understand that. And I say that also because even the most liberal whites are extremely racist. So here's a perfect example. I Am a Loho posted a community post where a liberal, likely white person, I'm assuming it's a white person, I'm presuming it's a white person since all of the people in the picture, all the children were white, of one child dressed up as Donald Trump, one child in full, not just Black face, but Black hands and everything on a chain, and then a woman on a chain behind that other child. Somebody literally dressed 3 white children up like this. One as Donald Trump, one white child in blackface, and one white little girl. And the blackface child and the white little girl were on a chain with the little Trump child pulling them along. A white liberal did that. Those people are the most racist of all, you know? So why would I have that conversation, right? The point of the conversation is that we can put everything that we're experiencing now into a historical context, that we can see a chain of events and behaviors, not just in the white community, but in the Black community as well. And as you guys know, I separate the world into Black and white. Okay, so I know that there are Asians and various types of Hispanics and all of that. But at the end of the day, let's be real. If nobody could talk, lips zip shut, when people look at each other, most people are going to register as Black and white. If we all just held our hands up and didn't show our faces, most people are going to register as Black or white. You either have dark skin or you don't. Okay, first of all, Crick said, what victimhood? What victimhood am I injecting? And if anybody's going to bring war on themselves, it's going to be another community, likely your community, right? Your community will bring war on themselves. Your community is the community moving funny around here. I don't believe in victimhood. Let's just be very clear. I don't believe in victimhood. You haven't heard me say anything except for observe and understand your enemy. Observe and understand the way that they behave so that you can compete. What is victimhood about me saying we need to be ready to compete in a global society? And part of that competing is us unifying as a diaspora and understanding behaviors that are historically enacted by whites. Why is it important? Why am I singling out white people? Because who is currently holding the most control globally? White people. So who do we need to be concerned about understanding and dissecting? White people. Now, you can feel some kind of way about it. I can understand you not liking sitting and listening to somebody say, Black people unite. Black people recognize that historically they have behaved this way. Black people recognize that your ancestors may have had an interaction with white people that could affect the way that you see things today. That could make you uncomfortable. And if you've had enough of it, you're welcome to leave. You are. Or you're welcome to stay and be pissed off. I really don't care. But I think what we're definitely Yeah, they do want to hold on to their white privilege, which is why it's offensive for me to sit here and call out the truth of what they're like. It's offensive. You know, when I say we have to have a zero tolerance policy for homosexuality, we only have to look into European history to understand why. Every society that they've had has been overrun with homosexuality, specifically the men. Almost every society that they have had, the women have been degraded and treated like property and sexual objects. In almost every society that they've had, they have sexualized their children, specifically their young boys. So then if I say to my community, I am strongly adverse to these things, both as a Christian, but also just from a pragmatic standpoint, looking at history, then I would have to ask, how is that problematic? We have to recognize that we've picked up these behaviors by being in close proximity with the people who are very comfortable with a certain way of living. If we look at the Eurasian continent, homosexuality is widely accepted. Europe has the highest child sexual abuse rates in the world. Europeans engage in the most sexual tourism for women and children. And so when we see these behaviors modeled in our own community, we have to recognize that they are really only doing what historically is culturally appropriate for them. That behavior is culturally appropriate for them, and it's not about us. It's not about Black people. Trust me, it's not about us. If we were not around, they would behave just the same way. It's just that the only people that could be harmed would be themselves. And I think that we have to emotionally detach ourselves from the narrative that it is about the fact that we're Black and recognize that they just move this way, period. But what's most important is that we don't do some sort of weird animal farmy transformation where we become them and start using their talking points and ideologies to justify or motivate any of our behaviors. I think that that is essential, which is why I'm very, very insistent that we do not dehumanize them, right? Because historically, dehumanization is something that went on in Europe a great deal. And I feel that if we embrace the trait of dehumanizing other human beings, then we run the risk of picking up some of their other bad behaviors. We can definitely fight this fight simply using historical fact and never dehumanize anybody. I mean, they're human beings. They're just prone to some behaviors. Again, not all, but overwhelmingly. And perhaps most importantly, those highest in power. And I think when we have conversations, hi, Great Black, when we have conversations with white people, I think the hardest thing that we can face and the biggest challenge is that they become very uncomfortable with these conversations, right? You hear white people saying now that people are trying to shame them for being white. They're being shamed for their whiteness. And the thing is that a lot of times honesty reads as somebody shaming you, right? A lot of times honesty reads as somebody shaming you, when in fact they're just being honest. You know what I'm saying? So for example, me saying, because you could see we had a white person in the chat that was feeling very emotional. Wait, convince the most dysfunctional, poorest, and most disenfranchised groups of people to indulge in a sterile sexual lifestyle. We're to have the most problems and indulge. I don't know what you mean by that exactly. But anyway, I think when you have a conversation with white people, the biggest challenge that we face is that honesty reads a lot like shaming to them. So if you are honest about their historical behavior toward each other first, because they treated each other like crap first, which is what the white man that was in the chat was trying to say. He was trying to say, well, I'm going to send you a video on white slavery. And I was like, I already know about white slavery. I'm aware that you guys screw each other over. I understand. But if you point out historical fact, it's offensive to them. I think it's okay to be ashamed of behavior in your culture that is wrong. And I would love to see white people not get so offended when you say things that are true about their ancestors and the current whites in society. I would love that. Just don't be super offended by it. Just take it for what it is, because how are you guys going to correct your behavior if you feel people are trying to shame you or are being racist every time they bring up the fact that you guys move really funny, you know? And so I just feel like I just wanted to come on here and just put, Dark Prophet said, how do you feel about dating mixed Black girls? I mean, I've said this. Oh, yes, I agree with you then. Suleiman. Is that how you say your name, Suleiman? I agree with you then. Yes, I agree with you then. But like I was saying over on Sin's channel, and I'll answer your question in a minute, Dark Prophet. Like I was saying on Sin's channel, I think the infusion of homosexuality in the Black community happened when there was involuntary sexual abuse of Black men and boys. And then that behavior, because let's be real, you may not like something, but you can get a taste for something if it's pushed on you enough. You know, it's like a bad song that you hear on the radio. Eventually you start bopping your head to it, even though before you really didn't like the song. And the same goes with behavior, right? They say 14 days forms a habit. So I definitely believe that part of that was that homosexuality in its basest form was introduced via violence in the slavery era. I think post-slavery, a lot of Black men remained homosexual. And I'm picking Black men just because the Black men and boys were the overall victims of that homosexual rape. And then we fast forward into the 21st century, and what we see is that now that agenda is being pushed, and understandably so. I mean, white people are going to push their culture, and homosexuality is part of their culture. And so, because we're so heavily integrated with them, we're picking up on that, but we already had some pre-existing homosexuals in our community. And we are starting to see more. Now, we're still talking about a very small part of the population, but we definitely are seeing people tamper and dabble in that area a little more. As far as dating mixed people, like I said earlier in this live, I don't care who anybody dates. I don't. I don't care. I don't care if you date white, purple, green, or orange. I really don't. But what does concern me is people saying, well, Black women are so this or Black men are so that, so I'm going to go try to find myself somebody else. When your goal isn't simply to find a good person, when you have to make an announcement that it's because of Black this or Black that you're going to date out, if you feel that, you know, you don't like really coarse, kinky hair and afros, so you just want to make sure that you have a kid that has slick baby fine edges and all that, and that's why you're picking your partner, then I have a problem with it. Now, you can still do whatever you want. I can't stop anybody. But then I do have a problem with it, you know? Then I have a problem with it. Because if you're operating from a place of dysfunction, then that's going to be problematic, you know? Okay, John, that's true. I guess for me, okay, for me, John said dating doesn't equal um, marriage and family. I guess for me, I don't really date unless I'm thinking about marrying somebody. So if I'm dating somebody, it's because I'm thinking you could be marriage material. Otherwise, we could just be friends. I don't need to date you. You know? What's that about? There's only going to be so many people I'm going to be having sex with and giving my time. So we could be friends or we can be dating with looking at something bigger. It's going to be like one or the other. Hi, Sunray. So I guess that's what I would have to say about that. I agree, John, it's not natural. But with that said, yeah, I just wanted to come on here because somebody was like, oh, you're a separatist and oh, you're this and that. And I'm just not. And I'm not because it's not realistic, y'all. It's totally not realistic to be a separatist. I mean, the iPhone, you know, Apple can't even make the iPhone without going to Samsung for parts. What phones are we going to build? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to have to deal with some other people. So separatism's not realistic, but we do need to be unified in this global society. We need to be unified across the diaspora to compete in this global society. We need to have love for our Blackness and our people to compete in this global society. We have to compete as a group because everybody else is competing as a group, and we will not succeed and we will not be able to take a position of power and protect our people without that unity. But I don't think we should be stupid and just think that we're all going to be able to live in neighborhoods and never interact and talk to and, you know, be cordial with other groups of people. That's just stupid. You know, I think it's just stupid. People talk about it on YouTube and it's just dumb because it's never going to happen. We're past that. We're so far past that at this point. You know, you can't even build a house and source the materials you need. You cannot have a factory. You cannot do anything without a level of integration. So this idea that we're all just going to go off into a far corner of the earth and never talk to any other human beings is dumb. But what is not dumb is unifying, pulling our resources, pulling our energy, investing in our community, and competing globally together. Because without competing globally together, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. When the Chinese, let's look at the Chinese. The Chinese have been so successful. Part of their success is that they harness, right? They're harnessing their own people. I'm not saying they treat them the best, but they harness their own people. When they need things built, they build them in China, and they'll build all your crap too. But notice that the Chinese won't even let Western media really in. They don't even want their people's minds being influenced by Western media. So they have a lot of pride for China, but they also recognize that society is global. So there's going to be interaction there. And I think that's what I mean. We can educate our own, right? We can encourage our own to move away from places with very low Black populations so that they can be around people like them. We can buy from our own when possible. We can support our own at the polls, since the revolution clearly is not about to pop off, at least not a social revolution. But can we have some level of socio-political revolution? We can unify with other people throughout the diaspora and invest in other areas where the indigenous are Black, like Australia, like Fiji, like Africa, or where the culture is predominantly and the people are predominantly made up of Blacks, like Haiti, going into the Dominican Republic and lifting up the Black neighborhoods, since the Blacks in the Dominican Republic are heavily persecuted. What we can do is unify on that level. and globally compete as a group. And I think that is realistic. So I think segregation of education, segregation of resources, right? Segregation of money, segregation of our votes, segregation of our trade to an extent that makes sense on the last part, makes sense. But I think just thinking we're going to segregate ourselves from the rest of the world is retarded. That's just stupid. We're not going to segregate ourselves from the rest of the world. There are some natural resources you need to build some things that are going to require you to deal with some people who are not Black. So that's what I mean, the difference between YouTube talking points and like realistic, real world stuff. You know, understand the history of white people, understand it so that we are not assimilating their culture. But also recognize when people are saying just dumb crap, you know? Like, yes, we need to educate our own children, but no, we can't run a whole society without doing trade with and having some level of integration with other people. If we're in the United States, yes, we can build strong Black communities. We can buy Black as possible. We can do all of those things. But we also need to be able to healthily interact with the rest of the world, because at the end of the day, if you're not planning on leaving the United States, you're going to see a lot of people who aren't Black. You know, so what I don't want is for people who want to make money on YouTube, you know, pushing out all of these ideas that are actually not beneficial to the community because they can't actually lead to anything that will allow effectual change. I think that is problematic. And I think that's very anti-Black, right? We have to have temperament and pragmatism about this thing. Without pragmatism, what is the point of having a conversation? Like, we have to be realistic about what our goals are and what is realistically needed to accomplish them. What did you get done, Cassandra? Juggernaut said that he was just thinking the other day, why are we so desperate to attend the same school as whites? I don't know. But I definitely think that part of us assimilating their culture is that we send our children to their schools. And notice that they push their culture in their schools. So when our children go to their schools, they're taught that white is supreme. They're taught everything from a Eurocentric perspective. So it's like white people did everything and Black people just showed up as slaves somewhere. They teach their cultural sexuality, and European cultural sexuality is a sexuality that includes same-sex engagement and adult child engagement. So why are we desperate to go to their schools? Do you know what I mean? When we look at the younger generations, you guys, and this is something else too we have to be careful of as older people. When you just sound like a hateful, bitter person to our younger generations who have been cultured in European, Eurocentric schools here in the United States, we cannot get them to understand why it is beneficial to see things the way that we do, because we simply look like hateful people, right? So, you know, there's a way that we have to approach this. You know, not to get all churchy on y'all, but you know, there's a scripture that says that he that offends not in word, the same as a perfect man, right? You have to be wise about how you talk to people. And honestly, it's our younger generations, these same groups of children who have been reared up in Eurocentric schools and raised on Eurocentric ideology. Those are going to be the people who've got to pick up the torch to do the work long term, right? So if you just sound like a crazy bigot from the 40s, You sound like the Black version of whiteness. You're just pushing them further into Eurocentric culture. So we have to be pragmatic and methodical about our message. And that message has to include an understanding of the world that we currently live in and what is going to be necessary for us to make it in this world. And it also has to include things, like I said, educating our own children, unifying the diaspora, having love for what is Blackness, not just our skin, but our hair and our people. And learning how and where to place those individuals who, by no fault of their own, have a conformist mentality to European ideology. I feel like sometimes we're really hard on people who don't think like we do without recognizing that they spent a minimum of 12 years being taught the European way. More if they went to university and graduate school. And we talk to these people as if that should have had no effect on them, but it does have an effect on them. And we have to be pragmatic and wise about how we deal with those people. And we also have to honor that our rhetoric has to make sense for the global society that we currently live in. I mean, think about it. If we teach total segregation, if we teach that everybody's trash and da-da-da-da-da, then what would be the benefit for our children to learn other languages? Why would they bother? I would say the world is global, so all of our kids need to be speaking at least 5 languages. You know, I listened to Umar Johnson saying they need to speak African languages, and that's fine, but they don't need to speak European languages too. They don't need to speak Asian languages too. We're competing globally. We don't need some people out here, some Black people out here en masse capable of speaking Cantonese, capable of speaking Arabic, capable of speaking French, Spanish. Why is that relevant? Because the world is global. Because for all of your let's run into a corner ideology, there are no corners anymore. We're past that. We're to a place where they're handing out global IDs. People, like, get real. They are giving global IDs out. They start this year giving the first global ID out. And you have people talking like we're really going to be going off into the sunset, living alone somewhere. There are things that we can segregate, and there are things that we will not be able to segregate, especially for a group of people who aren't trying to go to any kind of real war. You know what I'm saying? Especially without fisticuffs. So then we have to start having a conversation that makes sense and is realistic. We are beautiful, Sunray. That's true. Born Free 1111 said, that's why we need a matriarchy, because the women are more compassionate in their discussion making. I mean, I don't know about that, Born Free. I would like to see our men leading, because while I do believe that there's validity, because I hear so many Black women saying this, and there's truth to it, that European culture demotes their women to almost nothing. Like I said, in European culture, children, male children, are preferred over actual women. Preferred for sexual partners, preferred for confidants. So that's a problem, right? And obviously in many African societies, it's the adverse of that, right? Women are not demoted in their societal status to almost nothing like it is in European culture. But I think realistically speaking, that there are limitations to womanhood, right? Nursing, childbearing, our time of the month, our smaller stature overall. So obviously there are benefits to having the men be the leaders. But I think with helpmeets that are mentally sound, Black men and women can work as a team so that we can compete in the way that we need to compete. But I do see your point, because, and I agree with this, Born Free, compassion and pragmatism have to meet somewhere. I hear people out here saying, we'll just, kill all the white babies. And I'm like, really? We're just going to kill a baby in real life? We think white people are literally trash horrific for bashing Black babies' heads in during chattel slavery. We just saw recently, what is it, that little school cop throw an 11-year-old, was she 11? Year old's face into the ground. And we thought that was horrific, but then we're going to say that we're better, but we want to behave just like them? Well, that is an idea. I don't know that we do have the matriarch, a matriarch currently, you guys. I'm not so sure about that. You guys can come up if you like. I'm not going to stay up here too long. I just really wanted to address that because, I have people on here like legit just like pushing stuff on me that I don't even believe. Like, I'm a very practical person, I really am. And so I don't want anything that I say to be misunderstood, because I want to be really clear what my purpose is. And let's be clear, I did not come to YouTube to make these videos. This was not my goal, right? I started making some political videos, and I'm politically conservative, y'all. Like right now, with all, and this, don't get triggered, but with all of the various presidential candidates that we have, quite frankly, I will just take Trump for another 4 years. I'm very politically conservative, but I'm also not stupid. I'm not going to be on here talking about, I don't want to play, Mr. and I were having this conversation. He was talking about, well, Mr. was talking about, hey, Born Free. Mr. was talking about, well, Irene, there is, we don't want to play identity politics. And I was like, all there is identity politics. What are you saying right now? The identity of a person matters to the politics. People who say don't play identity politics are being disingenuous. We need to understand the identity of a person. A parent beating a child is egregious because the person is a child. It matters. So I just feel like sometimes we're intellectually dishonest and we just say things because it sounds good. What's up, Born Free? You have to unmute yourself. Are you talking?
Oh yeah. I'm new to StreamYard, so it's the first time I'm using it. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Am I clear?
You're clear.
Yeah. How you doing, sis?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, man. I gotta pay respects to you. I learned so much from you. The passport video that you did with the birth certificate.
Oh yeah.
That I followed the steps and it's working. Like I gotta give a shout out to you for that.
Oh, dope. I'm so glad.
Because I did not register my children when they was born. I got two. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, so have you been able to attain their passports?
I'm in the process right now. I did the application, sending all the paperwork and everything, and they working on it. I'm supposed to get it back in like a couple weeks.
That's dope. I'm so glad.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So I like what you're saying on here. And what I was saying about the matriarchy is that when I research and I look back in ancient history, when we was at our most powerful point as a people is when we was running matriarchy. When we got conquered, they brought patriarchy to us. And that's why you see our brothers deal with the sisters the way they deal with them today, because we're living European culture. This is not our culture. We don't treat a woman the way how we do. Like we always put them up on a pedestal and treat them, with respect. You know what I'm saying? So the men naturally are the enforcers. We are the ones who enforce the rules and everything in the community, but the women are more compassionate to making the decisions. That's just where I'm coming from. I could be wrong, but
I think that is, I mean, I understand the model, and I think that's powerful coming from a man. I would say that I feel women should give input on the decisions, but I feel that like there is a balance in that both parties should be responsible for the decision making, like contribute, I should say. And then the man decides what will be executed. And I only say it for this reason, is that women have compassion, but then you know what we have on the opposite side of compassion? The absolute ability to go off into left field wildly once we've reached an emotional peak. Like a woman who's reached her emotional peak is a beast. Like will literally become, I mean, I could see like whole wars going. You know what I'm saying? Like
right.
Women who have reached their emotional peak are dangerous creatures. They can be violent. We can spew fire from our mouths and just rip a person apart just verbally.
Yeah.
And so I feel that that's why men are a good head for women, because whilst women do bring compassion and are good at kind of softening the hard ear of a man, men for women are able to kind of tame like the beast that is a woman, because for all the love a woman can give, she can equally literally tear somebody to shreds.
No, that's true.
So I feel like that is our weakness. Like our superpower is that we're compassionate. Our weakness is that once our emotions kind of spill over, it's pretty much a wrap for all reason.
Right.
Women kind of almost lose complete reason once our emotions get heavily, heavily involved in something.
You're right, sis. And that's why we complement each other.
I agree. We do complement each other and we need each other.
Right.
I think when we talk about like child abuse in the home, and I hear a lot of Black men using this talking point here on YouTube, and things like that, I would say that a woman is not built to run a whole home by herself. And that the best homes are homes where you have a man to complement that energy that the woman has and to also temper, right, her energy.
Right.
It's a check and a balance for both of us, both for men and for women, because men can come off very cold, even though I know that you guys obviously have emotions and things like that. But women soften, right, that hardness in men. And so we really do complement each other.
Definitely. I've been with my partner for 14 years. We got 3 kids together. And let's say children, because they say kids are goats. I got 3 children with my partner, and it's not a perfect relationship, because nothing is never gonna be perfect. But how I, as a man, how I make it work is I just acknowledge the fact that I'm never gonna try to fight with my girl. I'm never gonna try to put her down. I show her utmost respect, and it comes right back to me. You know what I mean? I don't have to show no ego in my house, because you're on the same team. You know what I'm saying? This is just me giving advice to because I'm an elder. I'm not a young person. I'm in my 40s. You know what I'm saying? So I've been around. And I've been through a lot of relationships, and I've seen where I've made mistakes. And from a man's point of view, I feel like we just gotta acknowledge the power of the woman and put them up there, and then eventually all of that will come back to you. You know what I'm saying? But if we try to play the ego game with our women, nobody's gonna win, because we're on the same team. You know what I mean? We can't fight against each other. You feel me?
Yeah, I totally agree. I completely agree. Hey, Joe. Hey, Dark Prophet.
Hello there.
Hey.
I haven't said anything because I kind of choked on a piece of fish, so I'm still trying to get my throat together.
Okay.
So that's why I had my mic muted, because you know how that works. Whenever you start choking on something, and then you kind of get that phlegm build up to try and clear it out, and then yeah. So hello there. How are you guys?
I'm good.
Yeah. Well, I haven't sent you that email yet. I've actually thought of a few good topics, but one of my teachers has been she's been giving me a lot of crap. She's a white woman, by the way. So yeah, I'll probably send you something today or tomorrow on that. So wait, what's the topic that we're talking about right now? So are we talking about?
It wasn't really like a topic. It's just somebody left me a comment on my video about if Black people should leave predominantly white areas. And I just was not feeling the comment. He just had accused me of being a separatist, had the audacity to call me a racist, which they would hope that Black people couldn't be racist, because if we had some power, they would know that if we were racist or not. But I just wanted to come on here and just talk about the difference between what is said on YouTube and like what is applicable in real life, and how I could make an argument about Black people leaving predominantly white areas, you know, where they wouldn't see Black people for days at a time, and still not necessarily be a separatist, because of the fact that it's unrealistic to be completely separate at this point, but how certain things have to be separate, and we also have to separate the cultures and divide what is European culture and the vices that come with that and their cultural behavior from what is our culture, because it's starting to get too emulsified. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think.
Opinion. Thank you.
Wait, did somebody send you money?
Yeah, Carl's opinion.
Oh, I'll be waiting for my percentage.
I got that 25 cents for you.
Oh wait. Where's my percent of that last $10?
That penny, I'll throw it in. 26 cents is coming your way.
Okay, 26 cents. I could use that to buy a stick of gum. Somebody's calling you.
Yeah. But go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I think that makes sense, because I think that a lot of people on YouTube do have like personas. I've known you for a good enough while to know that you're probably not one of those people. But I guess I could see why people would say it, not about you specifically, but like in YouTube in general, because yeah, there are a lot of people that do put on YouTube personas. Now, speaking on the what?
No, I was saying, yeah. And also just say things because they're salacious and inflammatory, even though they're completely unrealistic.
Actually, I kind of want to say something to that point, because you know I've been moving more in the conservative circles, and I'm not gonna say any names, but let's just say that there was a Black conservative movement very recently, and a lot of Black people got disillusioned with it, because after a while they began to notice that a lot of it had to do with you know, just speaking on dissatisfaction that a lot of Black people already had with the Black community, and sort of just like using that to gain momentum for Black conservatism. So I think especially now you have a resurgence of quote unquote pro-Blackness that's like that's directed more towards being more conservative. So I think that that also might tie into it too, because if you see somebody coming on YouTube with like new ideas, talking about, you know, what Black people should do as a people, then I think that you're going to have people that are a little bit more skeptical, because what you said throughout the video, and there comes that cough again. What you said throughout the video isn't necessarily the mainstream narrative about not necessarily going with the conservative side or the liberal side, but more or less just looking at the facts of things. Because I'll say this, I more or less come to some similar conclusions about that, because I've moved in both circles. Like when I was like 17, 18, I was like, I was never really liberal, but I was like extremely like pro-black, to where I was just like, yeah, F white people and this and that and the other. And then Jesus Christ, you got me talking on here, and I still haven't recovered this cough, Auntie.
Wait, take a sip of water. And while you're taking a sip of water, I'll just say this. Yeah, I think that's the problem. That's what I was saying earlier. I don't think you were here yet when I was talking about people jump to polars. My problem with the Black conservative movement is that I found, and I see this a lot with ABL. I am subscribed to ABL's channel, and I love his channel for the most part. But, for example, he was having a live, and one of the people came on and felt comfortable saying to him, yeah, when you see what's her name, Ocasio-Cortez, ask her for take out a pen and paper or something. And then when she tries to give you her autograph, say, no, I want a margarita recipe or something like that. And I'm just like, that's mad disrespectful. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But the fact that somebody is so comfortable thinking that they can just be a blatant racist, because, this was a white person in your presence, is problematic. And I find that Black conservatives find themselves, and I see the same thing with, what's her girl's name? Candace. She went to Europe and had to start her speech with talking crap about her mom, or pretending like some things are not racial when they are. I don't think everything is racial, right? Yeah. I'm not that far. Like, you have some people who are like, everything's racial. Everything's because this person was Black. No, everything's not. Like, everything's not because the person is Black, but some things are. And so you have one extreme where everything is racism, and you have the other extreme where it's like nothing is racism. And it's like, no, some things are racism and some things are not. And I think that is wrong with the two extremes. It's like, we cannot do any work if people are being completely retarded in their logic. Like, this cannot make sense. I can't be all the way on the conservative side pretending like nobody sees color and race doesn't matter and there's no disparities anywhere and white people never did anything wrong, and, Harriet Tubman shouldn't get a dollar bill or, get her name on any money because white people help too, or, way on the other side where Black people can just do no wrong, and, everything that happens to a Black person is because of racism. Like, both of those extremes are wrong. Somewhere in the middle is where sane people are. And that's where we need to be as a people, because these extremist points of views don't help anything. They're not going to progress our cause. They might make people money. People like hearing extreme conservative views. They like hearing their ears pandered to. People like hearing extreme pro-Black views. And I guess if you're about filling your pockets, you can make yourself a tidy little living doing that. But if it's about actually progressing the community, some things make sense and some don't, like segregation of our schools, segregation of our money, encouraging Black people to not isolate themselves in totally white areas. That makes sense. But pretending like we're going to segregate ourselves from the rest of the planet is retarded. You know what I mean? Like, there's a middle ground.
Oh, yeah. And I'll say this. I think this goes a little bit back to the last live I was on with you. I don't think that middle ground opinions are palatable. So what I mean by that is they're the most sane idea, but if people were sane in general, I don't think we would have to have this conversation, because most people would already be doing it. So people want to hear naturally, oh, kill all the white people because the white people did war on us in the 1600s. Or on the other side, we're past this racist, we're past all this racism. We're gonna go in and we're gonna make sure everybody has the equality. We're not gonna do this and that and the other. I mean, that's what people want to hear. And it's not really realistic, but nobody really wants to hear realistic. Like realistic doesn't give people an out. And I think I might have said something like related to this last stream too, but I don't remember because we talked literally for 4 hours. But yeah, I think a lot of politics is just pandering to the extreme because people have a predisposition to put their problems on politicians or the people who are the quote unquote aristocracy. And what I mean by the aristocracy, meaning the people that are in the public eye, the public figure. So you know that almost any issue that you can find in basically any country, the people will blame the government. Like let's say there's like a famine or something like that. Nobody's responsible for a famine unless you like dammed off all the rivers or something like that. You'll still have people petitioning the government to do something about that. It's the natural inclination to man to want to put their problems on somebody else. And the extremes are what you find whenever people exercise that. Because if you go to the middle road, then the individual has to do work. And a lot of people really don't want to do that, honestly.
I agree. R said once racism is out of the topic, people will realize it's a government society. And I agree with that. Okay, so let's be clear that I recognize that the biggest problem is going to be between the wealthy and the poor, right? And the wealthy that control government and the poor. But there is a racial aspect to this, and not because of anything other than Blacks are the chosen people to be on the bottom of the totem pole right now. And so I do think that both things can be true. I think sometimes we have these conversations as if both things cannot be true, but I think the reality is both things can be true. It can be true that the real problem is government, and it can be true that race is being used as a medium to execute a level of separation and division, right? Both things can be true. Carl's opinion said, to you, Dark Prophet, that you could be pro-Black and be conservative, and that he agrees some Black people, not ABL, and again, I'm subscribed to ABL, so I like him, who make money by saying things that they think white people want to hear. At its heart, conservative values equals pro-family. I am conservative, so I am pro-Black people. I am for Black people because that's what pro means. But I am conservative. So I agree with that. I think you can be conservative and be pro-Black. I think that for me, the thing that matters most is just that we are honest. We are honest when race is an issue and that is the problem and it needs to be addressed. And we are honest when self-accountability is the issue. And that is the problem, and that needs to be addressed. And I feel like that ends up being the dichotomy, right? On one side, you have people who want no self-accountability and everything is racism. On the other side, you have people who are crying for self-accountability, but say that nothing is racism. And I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. Sometimes self-accountability is necessary. And I think even in a lot of cases, self-accountability is just necessary across the board, but sometimes there is a racial aspect. I think we have to have the conversations from an honest place for any sort of growth to happen. Otherwise, no growth is going to happen. But somebody that tells you race has nothing to do with it, or somebody that tells you self-accountability has nothing to do with it, is not a person in my mind that has your best interest in heart. Because if we don't attack the issues in the lens that is appropriate, then we're not dealing with the issue. Right? But on YouTube and on social media, I feel like people pick polars when we don't live our lives that way. Like nobody lives their life on a polar. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's just running around in real life, living on some far, well, maybe a transgender person, but some far extreme of just craziness. Most of us are sensible enough to know to be tempered somewhere in the middle. And I think especially, conservatism is necessary for, and Carl's opinion brought this up when we talk about family. Conservatism is necessary to maintain traditional male-female headships and positionality and healthy families and gender roles. Like there's some things we can't bid, and the Black community used to be so conservative. I don't know what's going on with this. Like, if we're just talking politically, the Democrats don't even align with anything that has traditionally been held as important in the Black community. They're adverse to everything that historically our people have stood for. And yet somehow we are still crawling all over in bed with them. And the Republicans are disenfranchising a lot of Black people because they won't allow us to bring conversation to the table when race is an issue. You know what I'm saying? So that's why a lot of us are finding ourselves in the middle.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the guy's name, the guy from the quote. When I said that I used to be quote unquote pro-Black, I was speaking in the colloquial sense, pro-Black meaning like woke Black. Well, I kind of specified that when I said it, but like meaning the whole, big afro and all of that other stuff, have the pick in my hair and all of that. So yeah, that's what I meant by the quote unquote pro-Black, not pro-Black as in I'm not for Black people, as in pro-Black as in the whole stereotypical woke culture that came up in like 2014, 15, whatever. And also on the other side, me saying that I'm not quote unquote conservative anymore also doesn't really have to do with conservative in the colloquial sense either. And I make an important distinction between conservative values and the label of conservatism, because conservatism is basically just a term that can mean anything. Because while we know colloquially what it means now in 2019, it really literally only means conserving something that came before now. So conservatism now is more akin to like conserving the 1980s or the 1990s rather than conserving like the 1940s. So conservatism now isn't necessarily a set of inherent values, or it never was, because by definition conservatism has to change. But yeah, I think that distinction needs to be made as well. So I'll lay it out like this. When I said pro-Blackness, I meant stereotypical, woke pro-Blackness, as in, the Hotep, as they call them. And when I say conservatism, I mean the colloquial use of the word, as in conserving something that was in the past. So when I say I'm not conservative, I have quote unquote conservative values, but I don't define myself as a conservative anymore. And that's specifically because of I think that one can have nuance in their political ideology, like you've been saying in the last hour of this live.
Yes.
So Suleiman, am I saying your name right? y'all, I hate not being able to ask you guys how to pronounce your names. Suleiman
Yeah,
said
I think
the most
Suleiman.
successful Black, what'd you say?
I think it's Suleiman or Suleiman, one of the two. Like S-U, it's I think it's like Solomon, but with a Su.
Mm. The most successful Black eras were always rooted in conservatism. And I agree. I agree. Our conservatism is what made us strong. And losing that has greatly, greatly damaged us. And a lot of that has been lost in this attempt to separate from the wrong sort of ideals. It's like everything we shouldn't have separated from, we don't want to be involved with. But now everything that we should be involved with, we have a problem with. Like if people say get married or be sexually chaste or, don't sell drugs to your people, like then it's like, oh, that's a problem. Do you know what I'm saying? But if you are talking about, we should have traditional sexual orientations or we should come hard on homosexuality, then it's like, oh, no, we could be soft on that stuff. It's like we are trying to embrace the wrong set of values. And I think that is a big problem in the Black community right now. You have a lot of Black celebrities running around talking about, they have no regrets and, do what you want to do or do as thou wilt. And it's just like, what is wrong with you people? Like, no, regret is a good thing. Do you know what I'm saying? If you don't have regrets, what stops you from repeating a behavior if you don't have a problem with it? So it's like we want to shame like healthy attitudes toward things. BTM Two Top said, Blacks don't control the narrative about Black people. Say something about a Jewish person. Look, Jewish people don't control the narrative about Black people. Let's be clear. Nobody is making anybody send their children to a public school. Nobody's making anybody watch television or listen to the radio or read a newspaper. Nobody's making people assimilate that conditioning. That is a personal choice. That's a personal choice. It's a personal choice to put your faces in front of those screens and emulate what you see there, or spend your money on what you see there, or uphold celebrities and people that are controlled by the elites. It's your choice to uphold those people and engage that medium. And so whilst we could say Jewish people, because truth, a lot of Jewish people do own a lot of these things. While we could say that Jewish people own a lot of these things, Jewish people don't force you to eat it. I could sit a meal at the table filled with poison, but nobody's going to tell you to shove your face full of it until you're so fat and engorged you can't move. And that's literally what we do. We make a choice to consume mass media. We make a choice to engage in these narratives. We make a choice to support these celebrities. We make a choice to be followers and to be mimickers. We make a choice to do all of those things. And then we go, oh, it's that person's fault. No, turn off your TV, back away from your radio. Oh. Go do something worth doing with your time, and then you won't even know what the narrative is. I don't know half of what's going on in the world until one of y'all tells me. I mean, as far as entertainment and what happened on TV and what beef is with who. Hell, I don't know half of what's going on in YouTube and the YouTube beefs because I am not putting that into my system. I'm not gorging myself with trash. They cannot control a narrative that you never read. Narratives are only as valuable as people who are assimilating them. A narrative is nothing if no one's around to see or hear it. Truth? If I write a book and it sits in the middle of the forest somewhere, who's it going to affect? But if everybody chooses to bring my book into their house and read it over and over and over again, then that can definitely be a problem. And Carl's opinion said that he agrees it's in the elite's interest to keep us divided, keeps us busy yelling at each other instead of asking them how they earned their wealth, namely by exploiting working class people of all races. And again, I said that at the beginning of the live. We have seen the same behavior portrayed culturally for a long time. Our people are the butt of the joke now, but Everybody's had their turn at this wheel, so we have to recognize the culture and address the culture and not assimilate that culture into our community.
Oh,
That's facts. That's facts. Can I approach this from a different angle?
Sure, Born Free.
Are we aware that racism, classism, all of the isms that they're social construct, they was designed to separate people? Are we
Yes.
aware? Yeah. Are we aware that black and white are statuses outside of our people calling ourselves black people socially? Socially, are we aware that politically black and white are just status, and you, any one of us, no matter what we look like, can choose any one of those status if we want to?
Well, I will say this. I think, again, both things can be true. I believe race is a social construct, literally. Like, we're all human beings, and honestly, we're all on a spectrum of color, but we are literally all from the same source, right? As a Christian, I believe that, but even modern science is catching up to what the Bible told us in the first place, which is that we're all one blood. So, yes, I believe that race is a social construct. However, I believe, and this is where Yvette Carnell and I could have a beef if I beefed with people, right? Is she talked about accessing whiteness, which is something like what you're saying, that white is a positionality in society and not a color. But I think that that's not really true, right? White and the access to white spaces can be perceived, right, as a place that you can reach regardless of skin color. But unfortunately, there are real emotions tied to hues that are darker, right? People see somebody whose skin is darker and a feeling is attached to the color of their skin. So I think that both things are true. Race is a social construct. There is a position that whites have in society that can be accessed. However, what is perceived as race, which is the varying hues of humanity, is something that is visually recognized and acted upon and has feelings attached to it.
Right.
And so I think that's what I mean about, like, somewhere in the middle is the truth. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. First, and the fact that I said that race is a social construct, it doesn't mean that I don't acknowledge the fact that racism do exist, because people do buy into the social construct because we're indoctrinated with it. It's like you said, our children are going to school and being taught this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Systematically, they have it on the radios, the TV, everything you just mentioned. So after so many hundreds of years of hearing this mess in your ears and stuff, the other people, the other side, the white side that's on the top, is gonna want to activate that, because they're the ones who's benefiting from the social construct because they created it. You feel me? So they're teaching their children this construct. So when your children go to school, it start there. That's why I don't send mine. My children don't go to public school. I
Mine
homeschool
either.
my children. They're home with me right now. You know what I'm saying? I always homeschool them. Right? So I agree with you 100%, but I just want to give my people another option. Let them know that, all right, for instance, I got friends from Africa. I got Ethiopian friends and I got Egyptian friends that look like me and you, melanated, and their status is white. They naturally get that status from coming from North Africa. North African blacks are considered as white. In America, that's their status. And they look like me and you. And they are enjoying the benefits of that white status. You feel me?
Well, I mean, I feel like if a person puts white on a document, do you know what I'm saying? And it looks black, somebody might accept the document. I mean, Stacey Dash did it, didn't she? But they still will be socially seen as black. And I think how you're socially seen is ultimately what affects what goes on in your life, right?
Right, you're right about that. What I hear my people complaining about mostly is the access. They said it's not a level playing field. The access is not there like all white people got access. But if they knew that these are statuses, that you could actually switch your status anytime you want. anytime you want. You have the right to self-identify to whatever you want to be as a person here in America. So if you choose, I'm just saying, if you choose that side, you're gonna reap all that benefits. But a lot of people is ignorant to this. They think black is really a race. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I feel like we'll have to talk more about that, because I feel like I said, the effects of the construct of black and white are felt on sight, right? They're felt when people see your physical body. And so you can't escape that. There's no opting out of that. Like, so I could put whatever I wanted to on a paper, or I could access it until I walk in a room. But once I walk in the room, the mindset of the people that are dealing with me is going to be affected by my physical presentation. So I would love to have like a whole separate live just on that, because this idea of accessing whiteness is actually quite fascinating to me. I went on a whole rant about it.
Right.
We legit have to, you and I have to seriously just do a whole live on just that. But I also want to address what Jacob said. He said, who actually entertains Caucasian narratives? Jacob, really though, everybody, every black person, not every black person, but basically every black person that I've ever seen, like, entertains Caucasian narratives. They can't pay their cable bill fast enough to entertain a Caucasian narrative. What are you saying? Like, they can't click on the radio fast enough. They can't, listen to enough music, watch enough television, enjoy enough music videos fast enough to entertain a narrative that they didn't write. They are dying to end, and let you tell them that they shouldn't do it.
And you know what?
Like, you've lost your mind.
You know what, too, sis? There's actually white people that don't know how to access white status, like use it correctly. They don't know how to use it correctly. They have the white status and they don't know how to use it because it's just a status. You got white people that's poor living on the streets, homeless.
But here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything to me, because there's limited positions at the highest places in society. There will always be an underclass. The way our capitalist society is set up, it's necessary. And as I said earlier in this live, they don't have a preference for treating their people well. This is not a thing that they care about. Do you know what I mean? They know some of their people have to be disenfranchised. There's a historical document that I presented here on the channel that actually talks about that. It talks about how the elite whites, literally, this is not me saying elite whites, this is what the white doctor that wrote it said. He talks about how the elite whites are able to get on well with the Negro, as he called us in the book. And this is like, from about 100 years ago. They're able to get on well with the Negro because they don't have to compete with us. And then he goes on to talk about the lower class of whites and how they're the ones that have a real problem with Black people because they end up in direct competition with us. And so it makes it difficult for them because they're vying for the same position as we are. See, they make a difference and recognize that they're elite and they're poor, because remember, before Black people were around and only white people were around, before there was something called white, right? Because everybody was the same where they were. Before the bringing in of Darwinism and the classification of human beings on some sort of hierarchy, before all of that happened, there was an underclass even there. That's just part of a particular culture. Do you know what I'm saying? And that culture has been carried on to the United States, and now the underclass of that culture is just picked by skin color. And so that's why I said we could have a very fascinating discussion about this, because I hear what you are saying, but I wouldn't call it accessing whiteness. I would call it accessing affluence. And that could be affluence of any kind. It's not whiteness, it's affluence. And I think that's where the breakdown comes. Now, that affluence may have a white face currently globally, but that would look any kind of way. It has nothing to do with skin color. At that point, it has to do with money and power and influence. Money, power, and influence are affluence. And so I would call it accessing affluence, not accessing whiteness, because in a place with all white people, there would still be an underclass. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's not about skin color at that point. It's about money.
Right. It's about the resources that we're lacking. Because when you use the statuses, because there's two status, there's white and there's black, right? People get emotionally attached to both, but all it is just, it's set up in a sense like a pyramid scheme. We're on the bottom, they're on the top, and we supposed to be the serf class to them. In Europe, before they came here, when they was in Europe, when the Moors was ruling Europe, they had them the same way. They was on the bottom and the Moors was on the top. There was the underclass, there was the serf class before they came here and got some power. You know what I'm saying? So in every society, they have a class system set up. Most society today, they have a class system set up or a racism system set up. You know what I'm saying? But all that is just the access of the resource. It has nothing to do with skin color. You feel me? It's just accessing the resource so you can self-sustain, you and your family. That's it.
Well, I would say it used to be that it had nothing to do with skin color, but it has been made to have something to do with skin color now. So I would say once upon a time, it had nothing to do with skin color, right? It was just about resources and influence and power. But now they have taken that model, that cultural model, and they have attached a visual to it. And they've said people who look like this are now going to be designated for that peon class. And because there still is a surplus of bodies, where they really have placed most of their people is in the middle class, in the upper middle class, and then kept the most affluent areas separate. Now, Carl's Opinion said something that was interesting. He said, we could form a group based on borders with other countries. And so our group would be people found south of the Canadian border and north of the Mexican border and east of the Pacific and west of the Atlantic. So that's talking like a bigger cultural picture, right? And I feel like Carl's Opinion, isn't that how most continents do it? Africa is an example. We always say Africa, 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 but if you talk to an African, they're like, I am Nigerian. I am, you know what I mean? They're talking about their individual country, and so they're identifying by country membership. The same thing, Blacks often, American Blacks often get mad at people who are like Dominican or Cuban because they say, I am Dominican, I am Cuban. They identify with their country. They don't identify with race, even though they recognize there's different races. But if you ask them, they'll say, I'm Cuban, I'm Dominican, right? And so I feel like everybody else is already doing that. We just don't do that here in the United States. And maybe it's because we're kind of the guinea pigs of the world, where the United States is such a melting pot that, and we have so many immigrants here, and we have such a different history of our startup. Like our history is new, our country is relatively new. And the beginning of our country already started with internal division, that we're having an inability to do what older, much, much older countries have always done, which is identify as a country. But it's an interesting thought, Carl's Opinion. I just think the reason we don't do it here is because we are a new country that started off not identifying ourselves as Americans, but started identifying ourselves by race, which is something I don't think any other country on the planet, up to the point of the establishment of the United States and the colonies, I don't think anybody had done that before. So we literally are like the guinea pigs of the world with this thing.
Hey, Carl's Opinion, you sure have a lot of money to give to Irene. Can you swing some of that my way?
Oh my gosh, I can't with you.
I need some shekels, Irene.
Trying to take your bread, sis.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to introduce myself and say hello.
Hi, how you doing?
I've spoken to you before, and I never got to apologize. I don't know what your name is, Born Free, because you were trying to tell us about paperwork and like if we're trying to travel, that it would be better to get I think you said it was the white papers than the yellow ones.
What?
And I was just having yeah. and I was just having a big old like push. I was just like kind of arguing with you about it, but afterwards I was like, yeah, it is better to make sure you have the right documentations if you're traveling places, because one will give you more freedoms than the other. And I don't know why I was arguing with you so much about it the last time, so I wanted to apologize for that.
Nah, you're good, bro.
All right, yeah, and I wanted to say for Irene, I do agree, like to a certain extent. You know, I feel like race does come down to our genetic makeup. Like, so one race can consume certain, uh, things than another race, and it's not healthy for them just because of the way their body chemical composition's made up. So, like, I feel like that has a big role in how people just live, because everybody has different ways of living and different, like, quote unquote, ideas of what it means to live healthy. And that's what I'm saying. One race living healthy might not be necessarily healthy for another one, because they don't eat the same things. They can't survive in the same whatever. So I do think it's it's not bad. I don't want to say for self-segregation, but for races to kind of focus on themselves instead of trying to like integrate with everybody, because that's what the New World Order wants, is everybody to integrate.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
What
One other thing, I wanted to say, I don't understand. You're saying like black people can't be racist because they don't have power. I feel like that's one of the lies that the powers that be try to make us believe, is that we don't have power. But in reality, we
we are.
are like painting a cosmic pictures just by existing. Like, we're having so much influence on the universe, but they try to make us not be aware of that fact, how much power we actually have. We're infinite beings.
Well, I think that that's valid. I think when I say we don't have power, I mean that whether, like, let's say we do have power on a level, and I do believe in this, right? That there's different types of power, and everything is not like a physical power, right? But
Yeah. Wait, real quick. I'm sorry, but there's this one last thing, because it contradicted, that statement contradicted the next one you said. Oh, damn it. Which was that, man, I was just thinking about it when you were speaking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, it's my fault. You said we didn't have power. Oh, yeah, and then you were saying that no one's stopping us, or like you were saying, it's not our fault if we're focusing on something, and like we can't give them the power or something. But I was saying, dude, I've been around. I feel like you're a really smart person, and I like listening to the things you have to say. And there's a couple of other people. There's like a handful on YouTube who actually are trying to have a real conversation. And believe it or not, you do draw a crowd. Like, there are certain people who are listening to what you're saying, because it's a leader type of thing. Like, that's always been like that. The leaders get taken out. They want to see who is the one that the people are willing to follow, and then people gravitate towards those with great potential, kind of thing.
Well, I wish I knew the comment that you were talking about. The one that you said was a bit of a contradiction, because I was trying to place it. Like, were you talking about, like, is it the comment I made about the schools, or about assimilating the information, or I don't know. I wish I knew which one you're talking about so that I could like more clearly address it. But what I will say is this. I believe that there are different types of power. But here's the thing. What I mean is that whether it is possible, whether in theory we could or not execute racism, because I can be a bigot, right? But racism takes the ability for my bigotry to affect personal lives of people that I am against en masse, right? So that's what I mean by Black people cannot be racist. And if there's a power that we can harness, which I would agree there is, both a physical and a non-physical power that we can harness, I'm not seeing that happening anytime soon, because that would take a level of unity and cooperation, and I don't think we're there yet. So when I say Black people can't be racist, I mean where we stand now, we can feel any type of way, but we are not enacting that on other groups and mass, right?
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
something we're executing. So I guess that's like more precisely like what I meant by that.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Definitely, it's possible, but I just feel like the reason why it's not happening is just a more matter of a choice. You know, like we don't want to become like the oppressors type of thing.
No, I agree with that. Now, I agree we don't want to morph into the very thing that we say we hate, which is why I really cringe when I hear us using talking points. Like I could switch between a racist white channel and a pro-Black channel. Pro-Black and the talking points are like exactly the same.
Yeah, real similar. Yeah.
But like it's like, but you're talking about Black people and you're talking about white people. But if I close my eyes, y'all are literally just saying the same thing about each other. Like they're not human. They're not human. They have tails. They have tails. They, you know, they are trash. They are trash. It's like,
Yeah.
when you are literally turning into the very people that you say are problematic, but then you become the problem. So I do agree that we have to maintain humanity. And that's why I used that example earlier where people are like, we'll kill the babies. And I'm like, really? We'll kill the babies? You know what I'm saying? Like, but then we say that they're so horrific because they were bashing our babies' heads into the ground, you know, but we'll kill their babies. So then that would make us them. That would be some accessing whiteness for you. Look at that. Like that would be accessing it in the wrong way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I wanted to also address what Cassandra said. She said, my boyfriend identifies himself as American when talking to whites. Honestly, I find it annoying. Sorry to leave that up so long, Cassandra, but I didn't want to forget. I think that is very interesting. We are American. You know what I'm saying? We are American. And on one hand, I totally dig it. It depends on where you guys are from. See, in California,
I'm in Texas.
What'd you say?
I'm in Texas.
Yeah, see, I feel like it's interesting being on YouTube and having these conversations because I'm from California and I'm from San Francisco, and the dialogue looks a lot different there. And so I guess I can understand better people who would say something like that, Cassandra. Like, I guess I've heard that conversation before. Do you know what I mean? Years ago, I've heard that we're just American, we're just human. Like we're human, or we're American, we're all human beings.
Yeah, but they're simplifying. That's like a simplification of what's actually going on.
Yeah, I mean, we are all American and we are all human beings, and I totally agree. I just think that sometimes people feel like if I just, and there was a YouTuber, I did a video on her, a really beautiful beauty guru, a Black woman. She's very dark skinned and she has blue eyes, like naturally blue eyes, but she's really dark. And she did a video on race being a social construct, and people attacked her so badly that she literally took the video down. And what I would have to say is I understand people who have that narrative and use those talking points, because the reality is that we are all people, we are all American, race is a social construct, but simply going around, because there's a group of people that feel like if we feed this thing, it's not going to go away. And I totally feel like that sometimes. You know, sometimes I feel like with racial epithets, like, you know, we teach them to our children and then our children learn them, even if we teach them like it's bad, right? Like they used to call so-and-so this, or they used to call these group of people that. We're teaching it to them to say it's bad, but then we've taught it to them. Do you know what I mean? So it's like the word's not going to die because you keep on passing it down, right? And I understand that idea about certain sort of attitudes. Like if we just stop passing it down, then it'll go away. And I think that I can understand people who take that route. So Cassandra, I can understand why your boyfriend or people that I've definitely met and grew up with, or the YouTuber that I mentioned, I can understand why people take that route, and I can understand the logic in it. But I also see the fallacy in it, which is that if I say something like that, it then makes it hard for me to address an injustice that really is directional in nature. So let's take race out of it. Child sexual trafficking, right? If I insist on not saying that they are children, then that kind of stops me from being able to protect children. Do you know what I'm saying? So on one hand, I understand erasing those things because you don't want to feed them. On the other hand, I think sometimes identity politics is needed to address the needs of a certain group. Otherwise, it becomes a very muddled sort of thing.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I have the same problem trying to address certain issues. It's kind of like, it's hard to address certain things because in a certain sense, you don't know if you're adding fuel to the fire, or how to exactly address the issue, especially being on an open platform, because it's easy for people to, really take your words and then twist them up.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually what inspired this live. Because somebody had twisted, like, I was like, no, please don't take, but, and I think that's part of the responsibility of having open conversation, right? I was like, please do not take that video out of context. You would have to watch all my other videos to understand a full picture, because I have a video on, I have a video called Science Says Racists Are Stupid, where I talk about the social construct of race. I think one of my top ranking videos here on my channel is about another YouTuber, supposedly, but what I'm really talking about is the social construct of race. Do you know what I mean? And how it's funny that we embrace this construct that was designed to place everybody but Caucasians at the bottom of the totem pole of humanity. And yet here we are, we're like running with it. But
I want to add something to that. That's part of I feel like that's a part of the whole pseudoscience that gets pushed on mainstream science. They try to, because mainstream science supports this whole talking points that the narrative that you're talking about of the races, where we came from monkeys, and then we evolved. They say we evolved eventually to the white race. That's kind of what they try to say. Evolution. Black people were the first ones, and it's just like, okay.
Yeah, so you're the least evolved. And then that also, and it goes past even that, because part of evolutionary theory is this sort of survival of the fittest thing. So when they completely decimated the Tasmanians, it was said that that was the natural order of things, because it is survival of the fittest and we're just animals. And so they were just behaving according to natural selection. And so many barbaric policies have been done in the name of this ideology. And yet we have people completely embracing race. And I'm just like, but y'all know that this is like the problem, right? Like this whole system is exactly how we ended up here. So we might just want to like not adopt that. And that's what I mean by understanding the culture of things and having a more global view about culture. Because when we understand the culture that is toxic, we won't be so quick to adopt these ideologies and thought processes that literally are the reason that we're in this position today. So I don't know. It's like, it's frustrating because I feel like here on YouTube, it's hard when, and this is not for everybody, right? This is definitely not for everybody, but there is, oh, for sure, Born Free, thank you for coming up. It's definitely difficult in my eyes for people who have tied money into message. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, for example, Q Butter, who was in the chat earlier, he, and my man is another good example. Mr. is another example of this. They put their money and their energy into their movements. It's more of a drain right, for them than it is financial benefit, right? If anything, the money is flowing outward, right? And so it is actually a drain on energy and finances to do something that they feel is right. I feel when it becomes the reverse of that, then it can be a dangerous game, because then sometimes the message, and I wish he was here. One of my real old time subscribers, and his beautiful daughter, Demetrius, he did a video that I had not seen because I don't get to his channel as much as I should. And his name is Derek Williams, by the way, you guys. And he did a video about me. And he played a clip of one of my videos where I said, it's like one of my earliest videos. It's my walkaway video. And in it, I said, I'm not here to entertain you. You know, I'm not going to talk to you like you're stupid. I'm going to just believe that you guys are intelligent enough for us to have a real conversation. And somebody told me on a panel I was on once, like, your channel's so boring. And I was thinking, I'm not an entertainer. That's not why I'm here. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not here to entertain you. I think sometimes in these social media spaces, we become entertainers. And in our pursuit to entertain for money, we lose focus on the real goal. And I see that happening a lot here. And it's dangerous because a lot of us don't view a lot of YouTubers as entertainers. We view and assimilate their information as if it's useful for our actual lives. And
yeah, I agree. Same thing with I want to say same thing with the news reporters. They're also actors. They're not even actual journalists. They're actors. I never knew that. Yeah, they're entertainers.
And entertainment, and my problem with, so I like to be base sometimes, y'all, believe it or not. But I think the problem with entertainment is that it's meant to distract you. Like, that is the purpose of entertainment, is to distract you, to distract your mind. And a distracted person is not on their purpose. A distracted person is not thinking about anything that is actually going to be useful or effectual or progressive. And so while there's a place for entertainment, and I like it, I do think that many of our lives are wholly consumed with entertainment. And I do think when we see entertainment kind of overlapping with serious topics, that we start to play like a really dangerous game because people get invested.
Can I add something to this real quick?
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this, and I agree with you on that. And I'm pretty sure you're aware of it. There's like a lot of censorship going on YouTube. And what you're saying reminds me of this, just like how, what I was saying, like how we can't focus on the actual issues because, what is it called? We just can't, because they use what we say, you know, against us, even if we're speaking the truth. And one good example is they say it themselves. This, when they're arresting you, the cops, they're like, anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. That's how the law works. It doesn't matter if you're speaking exactly 100% the truth. They're gonna find a way to use what you're saying against you. Anything you say, you know. And one of the brother who's on here right now, Dark Prophet, I remember he was talking. Wait, is that you?
Yeah.
I think you were talking about like the e-cigarettes, how you don't smoke them and you don't know what anybody's putting in them. They could put whatever.
No, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. I don't smoke.
Okay, there was just some other guy. He was saying, the other guy who was on right now, that these kids don't know what they're putting in the e-cigarettes, and you know, anybody could just put anything in them and you're smoking them, and then you could just get sick. And then come to find out, not that long, a couple of months later, that happened. And I was just like, wow, what a surprise, you know. Like, that's crazy how if they wanted to, they could have been like, it was him because like he's talked about it before it happened or whatever, you know, like they could find a reason to blame somebody, even if there's no good reason. Just for us saying something, we're liable, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Mister is always saying like words matter. And I do agree with that. I always, and I've said this before, I think everybody should really take arrest and firearms courses. Like just anybody can take them. You'll learn so much about the police. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that is a smart move. Just take 2 or 3 classes. And you'll learn a lot about your rights, and you'll also learn what they teach them, at least at the earliest levels. And I had a Lyft driver, and her son was literally in the hospital because of smoking e-cigarettes. He had been smoking them for 2 years, and he started coughing up blood. And she says now, like, whenever she sees somebody with an e-cigarette, she's like, I'm like, you know, you really shouldn't smoke those, and da-da-da-da-da. And yeah, I mean, we put a lot of trust in big corporation and the elite. We trust them. You know, I don't vaccinate, right? And when I was talking to my doctor, my children's doctor about this, she's like, oh, I know all the reasons. I'm sure I could rebuff all the reasons and da 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 da. And I just was like, well, I don't know that you could. You know, we know that vaccinations cause mass cellular death. We know that the administration methods are flawed. You know, they bypass most of the immune system. Injecting a weak form of a virus into the muscle and getting a result, you know, seeing antibodies, which are only proof of infection. And we know this because when we test for AIDS, what do we test for? Oh, we test for HIV, we test for antibodies, right? That doesn't mean the person is immune to HIV though, right? It means that it's been present in their system and their body is fighting it. And you know, I just was going over, and I think nobody had ever had that conversation with her before from like a logical place. So I was saying I'm not anti-vaccination, but I definitely would want to see this improve because we've seen our children used as guinea pigs for vaccinations so much. The polio vaccine is a perfect example. I could just go down the list. What is that, you know, fertility or anti-fertility vaccine that they were giving young girls that they don't give out anymore? And this is just recent history in the past 10 years that was making them so sick that they had to pull it off the market. So I think we put just a lot of trust in the powers that be. But when a wealthy man goes up and says vaccinations and a television in every home will go far to improve, you know, world population, you know, get control of overpopulation, I'm like, what does that mean? Do you know what I mean? Like, how is one of the richest men in the world talking about vaccines and a television are going to take care of overpopulation? Like, we have to listen because those things do matter when these people talk, but I don't think we pay much attention to what they're saying.
I feel like a real good solution I feel like a good solution would be to start up like our own what is it called? What is it called where if the cops are doing something wrong, there's supposed to be somebody over them to make sure they're not committing crimes?
Oh, I don't know.
That's called I forgot what it's called, but we need to have something like that where it's a kind of how the firefighters, you can be a volunteer firefighter, but for like the cop system, and just have the main problem is, you know, the corruption thing. Make sure no one's committing crimes behind people's back. I feel like a little bit of technology would help with that if we had like a mixture of lie detector and some form of MRI, because if you could scan the brain and see which part of the brain is lighting up, you can tell if they're lying if they're recalling a memory or if they're making up a story. So I feel like if we use some technologies like that to literally filter out all of the corrupted people, because there's so much corruption within all of us, you know, it's hard to bring it out and to expose it. So if we can use, I feel like that's another thing, like spirituality is covered up, and there are people who could see with spiritual matters, but it's hard, you know, it's hard, and the science isn't really, it's frowned upon trying to study that kind of stuff. They try to say it's pseudoscience. Okay, that's it. But I think if we use some kind of police force, or I don't want to say an extension of the government, because I was thinking of like have an indigenous police force or something for the earth, because they're doing so much things to the earth that's not good for us, you know, or any of the next generations, and no one's stopping it. You know, there's so many crimes being committed, and everyone's getting away with it. That's it. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Talking about.
No, I mean, I understand the spirit of what you're saying. And I would just say that I feel the way to correct a lot of these problems is socio-political revolution, which is a usurping and uprooting of the current system and the building of a new system. But I don't know, you know, that people have it in them to engage in that sort of thing. And everything always seems like a very insurmountable sort of task to people. They're always saying we're not equipped. Technology has got so far that there's no way we can win and things like that. So when we don't think we can change the social and political atmosphere of a system that's very broken, then, you know, that's very disheartening. But I feel like that's legit where most people are as far as their feelings about what we're capable of actually enacting in society. So everybody results to basically begging the very same people who are the perpetrators of these evils for rights. And I think that that's just amazing to me. It's like, you know, these aren't good people, but we're just going to beg them to do the right thing. That's going to, you know, that's going to get them to, do what we need them to do. But that is what we've been taught, again, indoctrination in their schools and things like that. That's what we've been taught the process is. That's what we've been taught is going to work. We've been taught that the elite and the status quo is all powerful and it's an insurmountable sort of thing. And so after years of being taught that, it's hard to see anything different. But I hear what you're saying, but I think for anything to work, and I think the only real way to accomplish that is socio-political revolution, because what you're talking about would be able to have control over and oversight over a power. And that only comes with some change in positionality. It's not going to be something that I think we can see work from the top down, because clearly they're not doing it now. So, you know, that's not the direction they're heading. So that would mean replacing and changing over a system with people who have a different sort of mindset. But again, that brings us back to socio-political revolution. Like I said, everything comes to fisticuffs or none, right? And if we're not going to engage in that, then we have to learn to work in the system as it stands and also accept our place in it and not constantly complain. It's like being in an abusive relationship, but constantly complaining that you're getting beat up. It's like, you're in an abusive relationship. What do you think was going to happen here? You know what I'm saying? So, and I feel like that's kind of where society is right now, is that we're in an abusive relationship and we've got all the complaints, but we won't leave the relationship.
I have a perfect quote for this. Irene, hold on. I need to get the book real quick. I don't know where I put the book, but I'll get the book and I'll read that out for you.
I would like to say the only problem with that is, you know, in our case, there's nowhere we can really run, because anywhere we go around the world, there's still going to be somebody there trying to control the situation, like in regards to the worldwide government. And Yeah, and I do agree though. Like there is this opposition force that wants us to fight, and they're using force in order for it to get us to do what we want. Um, and then that's one thing I always struggled with. Like, so we're just supposed to, you know, fight until we fight. Just keep on fighting until what, you know, like. Or and I don't feel like just doing nothing is the answer either. But I know what is. There's many ways to fight. You know, like I feel like the real war is one of them in the mind. If you can't free the person's mind, then you know all the people could die that you want. And if they're still in the same mentality, you know who's really winning.
I feel like both things are true, right? I think that the real battle is the mind, and I agree with that. And that's why we have to address that. And that's kind of, I don't think you were here yet. Something I was saying earlier is we have to address those very real things before there can be any other kind of progress. But I think it is also true that there are groups of people who will not give up their power, and they're not going to be loved or coerced or educated or reasoned with into giving up ultimate power.
I came to the conclusion that they're already like have a self-destructive nature and are going to destroy themselves. That I don't have to do anything in order for that to happen.
I feel like people who are heavily self-destructive aim to take people with them. Do you know what I mean?
Agree. Yeah.
And then that's where it becomes a bigger problem. But I think that in the same way that we've watched unhealthy, inhumane behavior travel across the globe, I think in that same way we can see, because you were saying it's kind of like everywhere, and where are you going to go to get away from that? I don't think evil people are like God. Like, whither can I go from your spirit? You know, where can I hide? Like, everywhere I go, you're there. I think that that's the perception they want us to have, though. And I think also there are fewer of them than we think, right? We're talking about a small group of human beings. Most human beings are just like you and I. They're just looking to feed their families, to be loved, to, you know, enjoy themselves, to live life. You know, they're just out here trying to survive. That's most of humanity. So when we look at it that way, then it's not so insurmountable. We're not talking about the majority of people, right? We're talking about a very, 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 very tiny group of individuals. And I think we have to keep that in perspective.
I know what you're saying, and it makes me think about some other things you were saying about how your husband is putting money into his thing, and it would be a different thing if he was actually making money from it. It would become a dangerous thing, right? You're saying something like that, and I agree, because people want us to depend. The powers that be want us to depend on them. You know, once they see us being self-sufficient, then that's when they're like, "Yo, what are these people doing over here?" And that's what I'm referring to. Like, if we were to break off, have our own civilization, do our own thing, be thriving, that's going to be causing some problems for some people.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
You guys, go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Oh. So it's from good old TJ, Thomas Jefferson. Wait, let's see here. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Okay, so not sure if I'll have to explain that too much, but essentially that goes to what you guys were saying, the idea that people in the country aren't necessarily too keen on starting a war with their own countrymen, or too keen on, you know, flipping over the powers that be. But I also want to put my own input on it because I think that there's a deeper psychological thing that a lot of people may have that the governments typically exploit. And I'm not going to bring religion into it, even though religion could be used. That's not going to be the main issue that I'm bringing up. Remember the last live, Irene? I was talking about the idea that one big issue. Wait, no, I don't think it was the last live. The last live was the natural hair one. I think it was the one before that I was on, where we were talking about the idea that one issue that there was in the Black community was that pride and hubris also often took root, and it would cause people that were in lower positions to rebel against the smarter, more intelligent people that could actually help in the situations that we're in. So I think that on a large scale may be somewhat the cause for, people being predisposed to suffer while these evils are sufferable, because I think that hubris might play a part in that, because I think it's incredibly human and I said this in that same live that I'm referencing. It's incredibly human for you to not want to be below something. So you create artificial sort of means for you to be the sole governor of your life. And when you don't admit that you are not the sole governor of your life, then that's where you leave room for the people that are manipulating you to keep manipulating you. So let's unpack all of that real quick. I believe that the inability to look at yourself as a weaker person than you would want to believe is the root of being able to be used as a pawn, because the pawn never believes that he's a pawn. All pawns believe that they are indeed some greater force to be reckoned with. The foot soldier never believes that he's just a foot soldier. He always has to have some greater means. He has to believe that he's going to save his country. He has to believe that he's somebody that's ordained by God to smite the enemies of his people. You can never have somebody believing that they're a pawn, which is the basic rule of government. You always have the people believe that their impact is greater than what it actually is. And when someone believes that their impact is greater than it actually is, then they'll never actually have a great impact, because the main thing that you can do to become a powerful person is to realize that you're not powerful, because it is through ambition that you become powerful. And I don't think that many American people in today's age has much ambition, because of a lot of the pride that a lot of Americans have. Because Americans aren't prideful in the sense that they're pro-America, this and that and the other, like it would have probably been 1920, 1930, 1940. But they are prideful in the idea that they don't believe that they can be the weaker people. They don't like the idea of someone proclaiming themselves to be great or someone proving themselves to be great. So in that's where we get the idea that the American people can be so easily manipulated in one way or the other. And that can be related back to the beginning of the conversation, where we were talking about the idea of people naturally going to either pole. Because I think that the pride of the people, and I alluded to that earlier too, the pride of the people is what makes them so willing to go to each extreme. And I'll let you interject there if you
Yeah, I want to just go back to what you were saying about people not wanting to see people surpass them in intellect, or wanting to drag them back down or ostracizing them when they show progress. That's why I want to talk about why we need to understand culture, because we live in a society that was colonized and is ordered by Eurocentric culture. And part of their culture, and this is probably something you guys have heard but didn't put two and two together, part of their culture was that people didn't leave their station in society, right? So the nobles stayed noble. It was very unheard of, really, for somebody to be pulled up from like lower society into sort of high society. And knowing your place was really important in their culture. And so that has been passed on here in the United States as well. So because we have assimilated their culture, because their culture is our culture at this point, I think that's where a lot of that comes from. I think that's also coupled with the fact, and there are some Black apologists who have definitely touched on this, that when in the Black community specifically, so that's on the whole, how the culture is on the whole. Now looking specifically at the Black community, when you take into account, number one, that we're already thinking that way because we live in a society where Eurocentric culture is king, and then we also pull in the fact that in Black culture specifically, Black American culture specifically, if a Black child showed potential of any sort, they could be sold or harmed, right? So if your child was reading, if your child showed great intellect or cleverness, they could be severely punished, right? In the same breath, if your child showed great prowess physically or something like that, they could be sold. So I think when you mesh those two things together, again, honing in just on Black culture, you can see why, number one, stay in your place, stay in your station. That's a European cultural ideology. Number two, we always want to downplay and prevent our people from doing anything that could bring them harm, or that is going to have them stick out like a sore thumb, that they might be really smart or something like that. And I think back in the day, we read it like in slavery, in the slavery era, we read it very clearly, like, don't read, don't let anybody know that you can do that. Don't let anybody know you can do math. That was very clear. But then that same behavior was passed on generationally, and people kind of lost sight of why they're doing it. Kind of like getting a social security card, right? That had a specific purpose at one time. Now everybody just goes and gets it for their babies, even though your baby can't work nor use a social security number. But everybody does it because now it's just the done thing. It used to be people understood what the purpose was, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the same thing with attitudes, right? We pass other things down that way too, and then we start just doing them because they're the thing that is done. Also, when there's an aversion and hatred for whiteness, because I've definitely got this as a child in certain areas, and I've gotten this here on YouTube, that I talk white, right? Which is really just a way to say that you talk quote unquote proper, which means you speak proper English, right?
Oh, yeah, I remember the live you did on that.
Right, which is interesting to me because, again, we don't even know why we say that, right? Because we all speak English, but perhaps it's like, oh, you know what I mean? So I think we carry on a lot of behaviors because of cultural influence of being a Eurocentric society. So stay in your place, stay in your station, and because of baggage that we've passed on generationally. Because
I think accents is a part of culture, you know, in a sense.
Yeah. And so I think we have to, and that goes back to actually what the things you forgot was saying, and appropriate to your name, the things that we have forgotten, right? Is that we really need to understand why it is we have the culture we have, where some of our behaviors we need to be very introspective about this so that we can dispense with cultural attitudes that are not appropriate to what we want our community to be and are not part of the intrinsic nature of our people. I think that is necessary, but we cannot do that if we refuse to analyze and understand that we have a lot of cultural baggage that is not ours, and knowing how to release that. And that goes back to that cognitive revolution, right? And cognitive liberation, where we have to liberate our minds first. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Actually, I'll speak on that because I'll be honest, I didn't consider that when I was just making my point a few minutes ago. But I do believe that you're correct on that, because I remember one of the things. Remember, I told you I had that pro-black phase in high school. One of the things that I always saw in my mother was that she had that same attitude. So what I expressed a few minutes ago, about 5-10 minutes ago, was basically the thing that I learned from that experience. So basically, my mother was one of those same types that was, oh, you better not speak out against XYZ, otherwise you may be killed, or, you know. And I remember one time I went on the radio. This was the first time no, it was the second time. This was the second time I made an actual public appearance in real life. And it was basically on the whole police violence thing that was really big in 2014, 2015, all that. And I basically I'm not going to get too deep into it, but you know, you get the idea. I'm pretty sure you can put 2 and 2 together on that one. So yeah, after that, she was just livid, like absolutely livid for a long time. And the whole premise behind that was, oh, you stay in your place. You don't question police. You don't question white people. You don't question XYZ, because you're not going to get shot. And that was the whole idea. But what she didn't realize was that served only to make me a little bit more, well, not rebellious, because I wouldn't say that I had a rebellious phase, but I'm trying to figure out how to put it, because it's a little more complicated than just the rebellious phase. But okay, I was explaining this actually a little bit earlier to one of my advisors at my school. I've always been the type of person to always deny authority, because I feel like authority should be something that's proven. So I always assume that unless you can prove to me that you can subdue me, then I will never follow your leadership. And so when my mother, you know, did the whole thing where she said, you can't speak out, you can't do this, I only became, well, I'm not going to say more dogmatic, but I only became more rebellious in that sense, because I feel like as a human being, and subsequently as a male human being, that you should not have any greater authority in your life than yourself. Although I do believe there are certain caveats that you have to have a certain level of wisdom and reasonability. But first and foremost, the person that should rule your life is yourself. So fear and external factors should have no point in ruling your life unless you have something to fear for just cause. But that's another argument in itself. Anything you want to add to that one, Auntie?
I'm going to say this, y'all. I'm about to bake some cookies. I'm going to bake them with you guys. Hold on, I'm going to go off camera because I'm going to change. I'm going to bake some cookies, and when I finish baking my cookies, I'm going to end the live so I can have cookies and tea with my little ones. I'm just letting y'all know, but I'm going to bake them with you. But Cassandra, I knew you were addicted. Look at you. You're a whole addict over there talking about. I knew you were getting tight over the vaping. I was like, why is Cass going so hard for this vaping? Because you like a hookah. That explains it. But I think it's really the chemicals that are in there that were making people sick. And although you're right, Cass, that people can do their research on those things. Like, who's doing that though in real life? Nobody's doing that.
Hey, Irene, I wanted to add one last thing before I go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to send you a link to a song I wrote and sang, and if you want, you can listen to it like off stream. And I was wondering maybe next live you can maybe open with it, or if you want, it's just to like promote me a little bit. If you like the song, maybe.
Oh yeah, I put I was typing. Sorry.
Okay.
I was typing and changing, y'all, because I can't cook in that shirt. But I put my email in the back chat. You can see it.
Okay.
I've
I
always
see.
had your email, Auntie.
I'm not talking to you, Dark Prophet. I'm talking to him.
All right.
I know you've got my email.
Well, I'll send you the link right now just so you can see it.
Oh
But
no, email it to me.
okay, I'll email it to you.
No, because I'm so bad. And if I close this stream, I'll lose it. It won't be there anymore. So
All right, I'll make sure to email it to you then.
yeah, I want to make sure I get it.
Okay.
Nope.
All right, I'll see you later.
Yeah,
It was fun talking.
Okay.
of course. And any of you guys who make music, definitely if you want me to use it, if it's horrible, y'all, I will still play it if it's horrible. But I might giggle at you. But yeah, Lindor, I'm always making them something. I'm gonna turn the camera back on probably, but I'll be in my kitchen or I'll be sitting somewhere. I just wanted to change my clothes, and this will be a whole nother show, y'all. Did you know they already accused me of thirst trapping? So I'm just gonna go off camera. But yeah. I don't know. That's just some food for thought, you guys. I wasn't really planning to do this stream today or anything, but I just thought, it'd be nice to have the conversation and just kind of make a difference between like common YouTube rhetoric and what I'm really trying to say, like over here on this channel. And it's just that I'm not about promoting things that don't make sense, that don't make sense. And I'm also not promoting you guys to engage in ridiculous behavior, because you'll have people on YouTube go hard against white people like they're just such trash, and then be taking care of, whole white women in their homes. And it's just like, are they trash or are they cool to live in your house? Like, which way do you want to take this thing? Because you're telling people to hate, but clearly you don't hate them that much, So it's like, we can call out this whole mess and still be realistic to real life. We can call out Caucasian culture. We can call out the impact that that's had on our people. We can call out what needs to change and speak on socio-political revolution. We can talk about all those things. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm taking you all over my house, so I hope I don't cut out. Y'all, we're in my bedroom. We're about to go get my silk scrunchie. We're going to do everything together right now. We can do all of that stuff without engaging in conversation and behavior that's going to be super disingenuous. Do you guys want me to show you a room I've been decorating?
Sure.
Let me show you. So you guys can see all this on my vlog channel, but let's just have a girly moment for a minute. Let me see. Will my camera work? Oh, wait, hold on. I have to. Oh, crap. I think because I have this. Hold on. I need to change my camera. Oh, yeah. It's back to the camera. Okay, done. Okay, let me see if I can show it to you guys. Okay, do you guys see it? Look at the room I've been decorating. Wait, let me wipe this lipstick off. Hold on. This lipstick doesn't. Sorry. This lipstick doesn't work with my. You guys know I rarely wear lipstick. Really, I just did that to mess with Mister because he doesn't like lipstick. But really, what he really hates is red lipstick. Like, he can't stand that crap. He cannot. Unfortunately, I've never been one to wear a ton of makeup anyway. Okay, let me show you guys. So look at this room. Can you guys even see it? This is such a horrible camera. How cute is this? Wait, How cute is this bedding? It's from UGG. Oh, this camera's so crappy. You can't see it. I would like to say that I put this little table together today, and I'm very proud of myself. But if you want to see a better quality picture of all of the rooms I've been decorating, you have to go to my vlog channel. Hold on, I'm gonna pull my hair up, you guys. I feel like that camera did not do that room justice because that room is so dope. But
while Auntie is doing that, can I take this moment to do a shameless self promotion and link my YouTube channel in the chat?
you can put it in there.
Thank you. If you guys could like give me a follow, because I've actually started doing stuff on my channel. So if you guys could actually follow the boy.
Oh my goodness, Carl's opinion. Yes, follow the kid. And oh, thank you, Lindora. Yeah, you guys have to yeah, the tent. But I'm gonna have an update because you guys know I have had I don't think I showed you guys. Hold on, let me try to show you guys. I don't like trying to show you on this horrible camera, but I'm gonna try. I have been, let me see if I can show you guys, because this camera on my Mac is not the best. Oh wait, I just flipped and turned it on. Hold on, that's not gonna work. Let me turn a different light on. Look at, can I show you my fan? Doesn't it look like a flower? Isn't it pretty? Y'all, it's so pretty. But I'll show it on my vlog channel. I've been over here, hold on. Oh wait, can I? You guys are gonna see my whole house here. I've been over here slowly but surely decorating. I've been working on this place for months. And I've been slowly but surely decorating and share. I still have a lot to do, but you guys have gotten so much done. For those of you who were at my vlog channel, you know I was like piddling back and forth about what centerpiece to use on my table and what I was going to do with Christian's room and all of that, like all this stuff. And I've done a lot here. By the end of this month, I want to have everything done but the painting. And then the painting is going to be like the final step, which I'm just having all the wood redone because I flipping hate this wood, y'all. I cannot stand it. Like, I literally hate it. Oh, yeah. Well, oh, my gosh. Don't hurt yourself sledgehammering things, though, because, Cassandra, sledgehammers are dangerous things. They give like a lot of kickback. Like when you hit stuff with them, they kind of bounce back, kind of like a gun. You know, when you shoot a gun, you get a little bit of recoil. Sledgehammers are like that. Sledgehammers give a little bit of recoil. So just be careful if you're going to be sledgehammering things when you're hitting it, because you can really hurt yourself. Maybe I cannot bake these cookies and do a live, y'all, because the last time I tried to bake cookies and like multitask at the same time, do you know that I burnt my cookies? No, I didn't burn them. I forgot to put baking soda in them. They were a whole other kind of cookie. Hold on, let me turn the camera on. They were a whole other kind of cookie, you guys. They were like, what is it? What?
Oh, also, quick little other shout out. If you want me to make you an intro, Auntie, wait, can you hear me?
What kind of intro? Like, do you do music too?
Well, not really. I do have friends that do music, but I am pretty good at like editing and stuff like that.
Oh,
so
no
I
way.
can. Yeah, so actually, I'll put a link in the chat for the intro that I have currently for my channel. You should probably check that out too. So if you want an intro, I'll gladly do it free of charge. Just tell me the theme that you want, and I'll figure something out.
Oh, we have to talk then. I so appreciate that because you guys don't know this, but I'm going to be changing the name of this channel. Not my name, because my name is my name, but I'm going to be changing the name of this channel to something that I feel is more appropriate, but I didn't want to talk about it until I have it copyrighted because I think it's a brilliant name. But Dark Prophet, yeah, I'm going to share it with you, and I would totally appreciate that because I plan to like just rebrand my channel, so to speak, with a name that is like appropriate to what I think the vibe here is. I think you'll like it too, Dark Prophet.
Oh, definitely.
I think you'll like it, but I appreciate that because I cannot edit. And those of you who have been to my vlog channel can attest that Irene cannot edit. It's like everything is like completely cut. Like it's like, because that's the only thing I know how to do with Premiere Pro. So there you go.
I don't use Premiere Pro. I use what's it? Sony Magix.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, it's it used to be named Sony Vegas. They changed the name of it to Magix. I used to use Camtasia Studio 8, but that's more for like beginners. So Camtasia is like a light version, but you can't use like ultra precise editing or very complex sound files on Camtasia. So I just started using Sony Vegas because Sony Vegas literally gives you like studio quality, like sound recording. Like you can actually record to Sony Vegas or Sony Magix as it's called now. I'm not gonna get into all of the technical stuff because then
I find this fascinating.
Yeah. So wait, what is it? I think Sony Vegas records in .flac or .aac files, which are basically the two most lossless files that general consumers have access to. So it's great for like sound recording. And you can zoom in on individual audio clips to like hundreds of thousands of a second. So like you can do ultra precise editing on it. It's fantastic.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't want to I can tell you guys how to get a free version of it online, but I don't want to say that in this video because I'm pretty sure YouTube flags that sort of thing. So I'm just not gonna say that in your video. I'll probably make my own video or something on it. But yeah, no, I don't want you to get your video flagged on that one, so I'm just not gonna do that.
Okay.
But yeah, so if you guys can check out that trailer for me, that would be fantastic. And when you want a trailer, Auntie, just you got my email.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's so kind of you.
Oh yeah. I mean, I need more exposure anyway, so my computer's freezing and it's playing the okay. So yeah. And definitely feel free to comment on that intro. It's a streaming intro, by the way, too, so don't judge it too harshly.
What does that mean? It's a streaming intro. I don't know what that means.
So a streaming intro like for a podcast. So you know how if you put on a podcast, like an official podcast, they have like a video or an audio that they play while the person's getting ready. So like it'll have like a 2-minute countdown or something like that.
I don't know that.
Oh well, yeah, a lot of podcasts actually do that. So basically, when it has the countdown, it'll have it till where it's like countdown from like maybe 2 minutes, maybe a minute and a half, depending on how long the streamer wants to have it set up for suspense or whatever reason. And then after that, they'll play the video or the intro, and then that'll signal that the show is starting. So that's basically what that is that I put in the chat, and I'll send it again. But yeah, that's definitely something that I could do for you for your streams. But if you want to actually make videos, I can make a different style video, different style intro for you.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah, because like the ones for actual videos
You have
would
to
be
put your thing on there because people pay people to edit their YouTube videos.
To edit it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I could probably do some editing work while I'm in grad school or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to like focus completely on just editing because I really want to just put my own work out there. So yeah, because I'm actually gonna start making a show, like an actual real life show with one of my film major friends. And yeah.
Like
That's
a
something,
show. Oh, that's
yeah, like an
cool.
actual show.
That's
So you remember I told you I do acting and voice acting and all that other stuff. But I'm actually, matter of fact, I'm actually taking a class for it now. Well, I don't really need to take the class for screenwriting and playwriting, but
Oh my gosh, I'm so mad. I tried to click the link and it flippin' highlighted your comment. I can't click the link from my computer. Okay, go ahead.
oh wait, I don't know how I
You'll
can.
just have to email it to me because if I try to click it in StreamYard, it just like it just highlights it. I can't even copy it. I can't do anything.
Wait.
But everybody else can click it. Y'all all can click it. I just cannot click it.
Yeah, they don't want to click it. They don't want to support a brother trying to work hard in this industry.
Thank you.
Wait, but what were we saying?
You were talking about your show.
Oh yeah. So, okay. It's going to be based very loosely off of a book that I've been writing. And it's basically like a noir type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like, detectives and all that other stuff. But I don't want to spoil too much of it. I literally hate talking about my own like work.
It's gonna be like Murder, She Wrote and stuff like that. Like mystery.
Have you ever seen the movie Double Indemnity?
No.
Okay, so I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it.
Okay, what's it about? I'll watch it tonight with Mr.
Okay, so it's about a guy that's an insurance agent, and he basically helps this woman commit murder. And I'm not gonna tell you that much more than that because that's like the basic premise. So essentially he's an insurance agent that helps this woman kill her husband for an insurance claim, right? So let's just say that the woman tricks the guy, but I can't really tell you that much more about it without spoiling it, honestly, because there's quite a few twists. There's quite a few twists in the story. Like it's a ride from start to finish. Like even the opening scene is cinematic masterpiece because the movie opens with a guy like
Double Indemnity.
Double Indemnity. It's actually a legal term. Well, you know how to spell double. INDEMNI.
I know how to spell indemnity. Come on now.
Wait, what?
I know how to spell indemnity too.
Oh. Oh, it is a life insurance commercial. Yeah. So yeah, it opens up with a guy limping into his office. He's talking to the elevator operator because this was shot in like 1947 or something like that when elevator operators was still a thing. And then that's just like the first 2.5 to 3 minutes. He's just walking into his office, but there's like this dramatic soundtrack that's over it. And it's so intense that you're just it's building suspense the whole time. There's no dialogue for like the first 3 or 4 minutes. And then he sits down and he starts telling his story. Like he sits down, he pulls like a wet pack of cigarettes out of his trench coat pocket. He takes it out, strikes it with a Zippo lighter, and then he starts talking in a dictaphone. And for the people that don't know what that is, For the people that don't know what that is, that weren't born in like 1927, a dictaphone is basically like a handheld what do you call the things, like a manophone? You guys know what that is, right?
It's like a little microphone attached to a recorder, but not so much.
Yeah, like it records on like discs and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
it's like a personal one. So he starts talking in this dictaphone, and he's telling his boss, which was like the head insurance agent. He starts telling his boss the story of him helping this woman murder the girl. And I'm not gonna get it. I'm not gonna get too much into it after that, because that basically, you know, that should be enough of a trailer in itself.
I'll figure it out, because were you here when Mr. was talking about how I figure out every movie like in the first few minutes? Like, and I'm almost always right. I really am. I can't sit through movies. Y'all missed that live. He was like, yeah, she will not shut up, because I cannot like sit quietly through a movie. I can't just sit there and stare at something for 2 hours. It drives me crazy. So I have to talk about it. But 2, I always figure the movie out, and then Mr. never tells me that I figured it out. He just makes me sit there and watch myself be right. So irritating. But since you recommended it, I will watch it. So hopefully it's a good movie, or I'm gonna hold it against you. You know what is a good movie to me? Have you seen Requiem for a Dream?
Wait, what is it?
It's Requiem for a Dream. I feel like I never pronounce that word right.
Requiem?
I can't pronounce it like that.
I don't think I've seen it, but I've heard of it.
I like that movie.
Requiem for a Dream. Hold on.
I wish I could say it, but I just can't. You know, do you guys have words like that you just cannot say to save your life? Like, you hear yourself saying it, but then when it comes out your mouth.
Oh, that's where I know the name from. There's a song that I listen to that's of the same name.
Oh.
So yeah.
That's a good movie, you guys. It's very artsy, and it starts off like, but it's like a traumatic movie. I like it because it actually has a dark ending, like a realistic ending. No, movies always end and like everything gets resolved in the end. Yeah. All the main characters, nothing gets resolved for them in the end. So that's why I like it. Okay, say it again, Dark Prophet. I'm going to get it right.
Requiem.
I cannot say that word.
Yeah, I literally say that a lot because I'll be honest, I overuse it in my own work. That's the only reason why I knew what word you were trying to say.
I can't say it. I can hear you saying it, but then if I try to say it, it's going to come out just the way that I say it.
Yeah. And you know, I'm a music minor, so a lot of like, you know, classical music or more dramatic music are named Requiem of something.
Yes.
So yeah, I have to know what that word is.
That's true. I cannot say it though.
Yeah. So wait, let me see.
You watch that movie. That movie is a work of art, like absolute flippin' art. It won't seem like a work of art to you, but just watch it to the end. Try not to fall asleep. I feel like the movies that I like are not like, they're really good movies though. That's like an excellent movie. My Mr. fell asleep on it, but
oh no, I would probably be able to sustain it because a lot of I like movie. Well, okay, I'm an English major, so I think this might go without saying, but I like movies and media that have good execution rather than movies that just have like a lot of action and all of that other stuff, which is why I recommend Double Indemnity, because even if you can guess the plot of Double Indemnity and it doesn't have the greatest the greatest plot. Well, it has a plot that you can see coming easily. Like it's not like a Tarantino film or something like that. It's not anything like that. But the execution is so flawless, like completely flawless, that you're going to be engaged by it. And that's one of the main things that I liked about the film, because it's like a standard noir film. It's basically like a standard noir film, but have you ever watched the Ten Commandments? I'm pretty sure that's
No.
I'm pretty sure no.
I have an aversion to all biblical movies because they're never right. They're always like, first of all, a lot of times they're very provocative. And number two, they're always like not biblically accurate.
Well,
Because
yeah.
I always would love to show those things like to my daughters and stuff like that, like show them to my children. But like when I watch them, I'm like, what the heck? This is not even right. Like this is not even what happened in the Bible. Like,
Wait, I think my roommate left this key. Hold on, he's knocking on my window. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna open the door for him. It's gonna take like 15 seconds.
okay. Okay, all of you guys watch that movie then. It's called Requiem. I cannot say that word. Requiem for a Dream. Let me put it in the chat because I can spell it. Even if I can't say it, I can spell it. What's more important, that I say it or that I can spell it?
I'm back.
I was telling them I can spell it, but I can't say it.
Just try Re.
That's the movie, and you guys absolutely have to watch that movie. That movie is bomb.
Okay. So I was talking about the wait, was I talking about the execution?
Oh, did I, Thomas? Because y'all, that took a lot out of me. Watch me, I'll never say it right again. Oh, never happen again.
Wait, was I talking about the execution of the movie last, or what was I saying last before I left? Yeah, so where was I? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Cassandra, you like soft porn flicks?
Oh geez.
There's a Weinstein movie that's a soft porn flick. And the thing I remember for that movie, he was like, and then she gave me another blowjob. And like he had like 15 blowjobs. I was like, what is the Weinstein Company doing? And why am I watching this movie with you? Like it was a stupid movie though.
Okay. But yeah, so yeah, I think that the use of suspense in that movie is great. Oh no, I remember what we were talking about before he knocked on the window. I think we were talking about my taste in movies. No, I think we were past that, and I was telling you about the execution of the movie. Wait, what's another movie that I feel like? Oh, that's what it was. We were talking about biblical movies.
Yes, we were, and I was saying
that's what it was. Yeah. So the reason why I asked you that was because I know that it has biblical inconsistencies, like blatantly, a lot of them, but it's not I don't think it's supposed to have like biblical significance per se. Like, okay, here's
the 10 Commandments.
Well, here's why I say that, because I like to look at things like I said, more about the execution than it is about like whether or not it's, you know, historically accurate, depending on what it is. Like if it's a documentary, then I would say I would have an issue with it not being accurate. But like if it's actually like an artistic representation, then I think you can judge it as an artistic representation. So the reason why I love the 10 Commandments as a movie is because first of all, okay, it'll kind of be a little bit hard to describe this to you since you haven't watched the movie. Yeah. But there's three pivotal scenes. Let me guess.
Part of the Red Sea.
No.
Dancing to the goat.
No.
Okay, well, never mind that. I don't know.
No. Okay, so
I'm sorry.
One is the setup of the rivalry of the rivalry of Ramses and Moses. Oh, okay. Which comes to a tip when Seti dies. Two is wait, what was the other one? Right, it was Seti. And the third one is going to be definitely when he comes back to challenge Ramses towards the end. Oh, that's what it was. That's what the second one was. The second one was when Ramsey's son dies. Ramsey was one of the best characters in the movie. And I love Ramses as a character. I absolutely love him because in the Bible he's set up to be the stereotypical, villain. But in the Ten Commandments, he's actually set up to be a sympathetic villain. And in so far as you can identify with him, okay, so I'm gonna say it like this. Essentially, the rivalry between Moses and Ramses is set up to be birthright versus earned right. So essentially, Moses is set up to be the hero of the story, and Ramses isn't set up to be he isn't really set up to be a villain. He's supposed to be set up as an anti-hero. So Ramses and Moses both have a claim to power and a claim to the throne, but it depends on your ideology which person is right. So you can easily make a case for Ramses being a sympathetic or a tragic hero the same way you can make him out to be a villain. But the movie is set up for him to be a tragic hero because his son is killed by, well, not killed by Moses directly, but his son is killed by the actions that Moses puts forth. And Ramses is set up to be only defending his country and defending his homeland and defending what he believes to be right. So you can sympathize with Ramses, and especially when his son dies. And there are quite a few scenes where if you're watching the movie objectively and you aren't just Gary Cooper versus the Indians and you're rooting for Gary Cooper.
I'm rooting for Gary. No, I'm rooting for the Indians. What am I saying?
Well, yeah. When you aren't just rooting for Moses and you look at the movie objectively, there are a lot of scenes where Ramses is actually set up to be the hero, which is why I think that the Ten Commandments is really a great work of fiction. I mean, of course, it's not set up to be biblically accurate, but the use of character tropes is definitely there. And Ramses is probably one of the best villains I've ever seen in cinema, just hands down, outright. Like, you should definitely
watch it, but then I don't feel like being mad. Like, now you made me want to watch it, but then I don't want to be sitting there like, oh, this is so wrong. This is so inaccurate. But if I watch it by myself, then maybe I won't be as irritated. But all right. I'll put it on my list of possible things.
Oh, it's definitely a daily thing though, because it's like 4 hours long. Like, it's literally in 2x or 2 or 3x.
Oh my gosh, 4 hours staring at something? Oh no.
You can watch it in parts because that's typically how like ABC does it. Like, it's like a 2-day thing. Like, it'll play like
they put that out to confuse people.
But yeah, like Moses is the stereotypical strong leader character. He's like the stoic, strong guy.
He wasn't like that in the Bible.
Exactly, of course. Oh, you're completely right on that one. Which is, I like the movie version better. That's a joke. But yeah, he's set up to be like the stereotypical stoic. If I could free them, I would. And so
he's even trying to vie for the throne. Like, what in the world?
Yeah, so like
it's like a whole made up kind of story. It's not even, why did they call it the Ten Commandments? They could have made a period drama. He's
not necessarily set up to be the best character, which is why I say that Moses, if you look at it correctly, well, not correctly, but if you look at it objectively, there's a huge case for Ramses to be the hero of the story, because Moses is basically the stereotypical you have slaves, slavery is bad, so we're going to free the slaves.
Now you're making me not want to watch it again.
Well, no, I mean, it's not that simplistic. I'm oversimplifying it to be facetious.
You think so, Cassandra? Oh no, I don't know. He's talking about it's 4 hours long, and he's making me mad just talking about it. I'm getting irritated just hearing about this plot. I was trying to figure out, I was like, when did Moses vie for the throne?
Well, no. He
No,
wasn't.
but I know it's not like accurate to scripture, but when you were talking, I was like, when did that even happen? Like, I
Well,
don't
no, he
know how that
wasn't.
was occurring.
He wasn't necessarily vying for the throne per se. The way they set up and the way they set it up in the movie, he's passively going for the throne. So essentially, his mother, quote unquote, his adopted mother, is the sister of Seti. Seti being the father of Ramses II. And so, oh wait, what's her name? I can't remember her name right now. But the mother of Moses is essentially trying to set up Moses as the future pharaoh, and Moses is set up as the pharaoh of the people. So essentially, Moses is loved by the Jewish people. So the Jewish people cry out for Moses. And because Moses is the stereotypically fair guy, the people love him. So everybody wants Moses to be the future pharaoh. And because because Ramses is set up to be
story.
Wait, hello? Wait, what? I didn't hear what you said.
I said this is a whole made up story. None of this stuff occurred in the Bible.
Well, of course.
Wait, stop. Dark Prophet, stop.
Yes.
I'm supposed to be baking some cookies.
Well, this is more interesting.
It is interesting, but no, we cannot talk about it. Y'all, I have to go. Y'all, I forgot that I was supposed to be making cookies. I've changed. I said I was going to make it with you guys, but then I couldn't make it with you guys because then I was going to forget an ingredient, and nothing makes me more upset than to spend the time baking cookies. And these cookies have to be rolled in individual balls and then rolled in sugar and all of this stuff. And then if I forget an ingredient, I will be so perturbed. Like, I will be literally perturbed. And you've got me all engrossed in this conversation about the 10 Commandments and tight. And Cassandra's turning on me. We were doing so well today, Cassandra. What happened? You had to go and call Moses a genocidal maniac.
Well, I mean, I am pretty engaging, aren't I, Auntie?
You are engaging, but I really have to make these cookies, y'all.
Oh,
I
man.
gotta make my babies cookies. I do.
Okay.
Before it gets too late, because they get to stay up an hour and a half later today. But I do want to give them cookies and tea before they go to bed as a treat. So I love all you guys, but I love them more. So I'm gonna go make cookies.
Hey, I'm also family.
I'm gonna go make cookies, but yeah.
All right, Auntie.
With that said, am I baking the classics? I'm making molasses cookies, Cassandra. Molasses cookies are kind of like my favorite cookie for wintertime. They're so good. So molasses cookies with fresh ground cloves and cinnamon and freshly ground ginger root. And they're so rich and aromatic and sweet and crispy and chewy all at the same time. They're like really, 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 really yummy. Thomas said, you want to watch great, but underrated mind-bending love drama sci-fi movie, check out Mr. Nobody. I love sci-fi. Y'all, I have seen every episode of Star Trek ever made, except for any episode of the Enterprise, because frankly, I hate the idea of the Enterprise completely and totally.
Also watch The Twilight Zone. Actually, there's a guy that started uploading all the Twilight Zone episodes on YouTube. So if you guys actually want to watch that, then you can do that.
The Twilight Zone, but Star Trek, y'all, I don't watch it anymore. I literally watched every episode ever made, except for any episode of the Enterprise, because it just got stupid at that point. And then I've never watched them again, but I've seen them all. And I love Star Trek. I am a Trekkie. You can test me.
Oh, another
Star Trek.
Actually, this one is gonna be a little bit
You like molasses in your hookah? Cassandra, I don't think you can smoke molasses, but you know what also might be very nice in your hookah? Cloves. I mean, while you're at it. Cloves are very aromatic and they smell really nice. Mr. Nobody, though, okay.
Actually,
It took me 3
I-
months to get to all of these, but I like all the suggestions. Thank you.
this one probably isn't gonna be on too many people's radars right now. Cowboy Bebop is actually fantastic. It's animated, but you should definitely check that out. The English dub, it is originally Japanese, but it's based off of American culture. So it's basically American noir, and it's also sci-fi. It's yeah. I'm gonna put it in the chat. Hold on.
X-Files got on my nerves. I think I saw like 1 or 2 episodes back in the day, and I just found the characters Mulder and Scully. So is his name Mulder?
I think so.
Anyway, whatever his name was, I found them obnoxious. I hated all the faces the red-haired chick made. Every face she made got on my nerves. So I never got into it. The Twilight Zone is like a novelty thing for me. I like the really old ones.
Yeah, that definitely. The
Yeah.
older ones are better.
Yeah,
Like-
I like the really old ones.
Yeah, like between 1958 and 1960 were the best ones.
For Star Trek, my favorites were the Enterprise, but only if the Borg and Q were involved. And then Deep Space Nine, but only because I like the ear jewelry. But Deep Space Nine got kind of tedious after a while. But my all-time favorite was with Captain Janeway and Star Trek Voyager. Voyager, I loved. Yes.
But I'll say this, Auntie. You should definitely make those cookies with us and not leave the stream.
Nope, I'm going. So with that,
No,
bye.
no, don't do that. Don't do that.
See you guys later. Good night. Good night.
Oh.
Subscribe to Dark Prophets channel. I will talk to you guys.
Wait. At least let me plug it before you click off.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, because you know everybody leaves the moment you click off. There. That's my link to my channel. Everybody left. Please subscribe.
Bye, y'all.
See you, Auntie.